And it doesn't matter how prepared you are. Like, I was super prepared. It's not going to be a smooth ride. I don't have this like identity issue per se, but I'm still like, what the fuck?
What up, fam? Welcome to another episode of Life Beyond the Game. I just want to take a second to say how deeply grateful I am that all of you are listening and supporting the show. I'm just so deeply grateful. I've been having so much fun with these conversations and the guests that are being called forth to come on and share their stories. I've just found these similarities between all these athletes and all these different sports having very similar experiences going through the transition and it propelling them on a deeper journey of self-discovery. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who are listening and supporting the show. It really, really means a lot to me. And I can feel it. I can feel this thing growing. And I can feel it reaching more and more people. And it's really, really fun to see how, the feedback and everything's coming in. So just want to take a second to say thank you. Deeply appreciate you. And you guys are in for another treat. This is an incredible episode. It's my first female guest, which I'm really, really excited about. Her name is Valeriya Berezhynska, and I'm probably not saying that right. She goes by Val. She's an incredible woman. She just retired from a professional basketball career. I think she played 14 years professionally, and she just retired about 11 months ago. And really fascinating journey that she's been on. She's Ukrainian, and she came over to the States when she was 14 years old, leaving everything she knew behind, not speaking a lick of English, and doing a foreign exchange student type program when she was in high school. She's 6'4", and so she has the frame for basketball. And she was over in the U.S. for 8 years before going back to Ukraine to see her family for the first time. That alone is pretty crazy, and something I can't even imagine experiencing. She ended up playing college ball at Rice. She got drafted to the WNBA. I think she played there for a season or two, and then she ended up going overseas and competing in France, Belgium, Germany, I believe. She's played on the Ukrainian national team as well. She found a lot of success in her basketball career, and now she's moving through the transition process. This conversation covers a lot. We talk about a lot. We talk about her own journey, her own personal experiences, some of the inner workings and drama that comes on a basketball team. I was very curious to see how, women's athletics in that kind of realm are kind of different from men. And she had a pretty fascinating perspective in some of the drama that takes place in her world, and some of the things that she's experienced are pretty fascinating. We talk about her connection to Ukraine and the war that's going on over there. She offers a perspective that I haven't heard, really brings it close to home, the conflict and what people are actually going through right now. And, being from America and living a really privileged life and not being, deeply connected to conflicts that are happening around the world. It was very sobering and humbling to hear her perspective and how close to home it hits for her, quite literally. Tanks going to battle on her street where she's from, and her FaceTiming her parents and literally hearing bombs go off in the background. So this is a very captivating conversation. Val adds a lot of value, insights, and offers a lot of tools. And it's really cool because she's in it. She's in the process of transition right now from that athletic career. And so she shares very, very real and vulnerably what she's moving through and how she's finding herself through this process. This is incredible conversations. I'm really grateful for Val and for her coming on the show, for her opening her heart. I know you guys are going to love it. If you do enjoy it, there's so much value in here in this conversation that if something really touches you and somebody in your life comes to mind when you're listening to this show, go ahead and share the episode with them, because I really think there's so much value in here that it has the potential of really impacting people in a very deep and inspirational and emotional way. So if you're listening and you open your heart and there's somebody that comes to your mind, go ahead and forward the link. If you feel called to support the show, the best way to do that is to follow the show, subscribe, and leave a review, an honest review, an authentic review. And that really helps get the message out with how great these conversations are, because I'm truly blown away. I'm just playing the role, and I'm just listening and holding space for these incredible humans who have so much wisdom to share through their own experiences of life. And I know that they have the potential to really, quite literally, help save lives out there for people that might be struggling or moving through something. And I hope if that's the case for you, that you find inspiration in these words and know that you're not alone. You're deeply loved by at least one person, me. Sending you love now. Thank you so much, and enjoy the show. Before we get started, I want to share something I'm so freaking excited about. For the last 5 years, I've been on my own journey of healing, of self-discovery, of finding deeper purpose and meaning in life. And that journey's led me to different places all over the world. It's led me to meet incredible humans. And I've really started surrounding myself with incredible individuals. And one thing that's been on my heart for the last few years is bringing together high-impact entrepreneurs who are focused on building a more beautiful world, and to have the visions and the tactical expertise and the desire to facilitate real change through the creations that they're putting out into the world. And so I'm bringing together 40 founding members this year to build the foundation for a community that is going to have a big impact in the world. And the vision with this community is not just to have transformational experiences for ourselves. That's definitely going to happen. But it's about bringing together really influential change makers who are focused and know that they have the ability and potential to really help facilitate and bring in real change in the world. And if you look out in the world, things are changing rapidly, things are shifting, and there's a new paradigm upon us. And it's up to us as leaders to start integrating that energy into what we're doing, and being a part of community and surrounding yourself with other individuals who are focused on the same thing is what it's going to take. And the way we build this community is through a rite of passage experience. So in order to join the community of these 40 incredible individuals who are focused on changing the world, we're going to be doing a rite of passage out in Utah through a whitewater rafting wilderness expedition. And this is one of my favorite experiences. I've been facilitating these the last couple of years, and really fine-tuning this experience. And if you don't have wilderness experience, it's been such a beautiful way to get deep, immersive opportunity to be in nature and to let go of all the distractions, and to have an opportunity to deeply listen to my heart, my soul, and everybody that's come on it. It's just impacted their lives in such profound ways. And through this experience, it really creates unbreakable bonds between the community and its members. And we're really building tribe around these experiences so that we can come together, shed all the layers of who we think we need to be, or all the things we've accomplished, and really shedding and letting all that go so that our hearts can come forth and we can support each other, see each other, hold each other in reaching higher levels of our own potential. If this is something that calls to you, I'd love for you to apply. We're moving through the application process right now, and there's some really, really cool humans, dope humans doing really cool things in the world that are coming through. And so the applications will be open next couple of weeks. If you feel called, there's more information at theheartcollective.com. That's HART, theheartcollective.com. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can check it out, and you can apply there as well. Without further ado, enjoy the show. Oh, that was a good breathwork session, huh?
I'm going to have to, get the name of that one.
My buddy Ben Holt. Shout out, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. I liked it. I'm into it.
Yeah, it's called Dynamic Breathwork. If you search it on YouTube.
Got it.
It's like 20 minutes, and it's just 40 deep breaths and some really powerful breath holds. I started doing that. I went to a retreat with Ben. He does men's retreats, and one of the things I learned and he taught me is the importance of the breath. And like, I've heard this in all these spiritual communities, and like, obviously it's talked about all the time, and it's something that's such a deep part of our life. But the breath is such a powerful thing. And I just realized how much I don't breathe, and had a really strong meditation practice. But then I started incorporating this breath work. It's 4 rounds, takes about 20 minutes. And after I get done with it, I can sit in meditation for like 45 minutes, and it's like real powerful stillness.
So you're doing it as a pre-meditation like setup.
Yeah, and even like the breath holds, right? It's like 90 seconds during that breath hold. Like how still did you feel?
That was a lot. I was
Like,
really
whoa.
I was surprised actually that I could last that long.
Yeah, because you're like you're hyperventilating, so you're like hyper-oxygenating the blood. And so when you hold the breath, like it's just you drop into that 0 point stillness that you're really after during meditation. So when I started experiencing that, I'm like, whoa, this is really powerful. And then I started incorporating some of the Joe Dispenza stuff where you like imagine the energy going from your, lower chakra up your spine into your head.
That's what I use. The longest meditations I've done were an hour. And 2 of the times that I do his, I took one of his courses and he has that meditation there. And I was like, there's no way I could sit for an hour. And I was like, really set. I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, if I'm going to take this course, like, enough like consuming, like you need to actually do what he says. Because I've been following him for like, I don't know, almost 10 years. And so I sat there, and the 2 times I did the full meditation, I had like these incredible ahas on minute 57. like
right at the end?
Right, like, yeah, to the end. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that's how long I have to sit before, something happens. And he walks you through a really good, like, I guess like that's what the breath work would accomplish, like kind of relaxing, getting you into that state. And then at the end, it's like, all right, now, you are no one in nowhere, in no time, no space. And that's when like stuff would happen. So
what kind of stuff? What was the aha?
One really cool one was, so I'm doing this meditation and, whatever, I'm going through his instructions. And I have this, I don't know, voice, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, the whole point is for you to be whole. And that's it. That was it. And I was just like, cool, all right.
A voice came and said
like,
that.
Yeah, I mean, like not audible, but like, yeah, it was a very clear, like, the whole point is to be whole. So I'm like, all right, cool, I'll be whole. Kind of like move on. And I start reading right after that. I read, it was a really short book. I think I had it on audiobook. So I usually listen like sped up. So I finished in like under an hour.
What do you listen to on 1.5 or 2 times speed?
No, 2, that's super fast.
Yeah.
No, I'm like 125, 145. It depends on how they're reading it.
Yeah, and who's reading it.
Yeah. So the book was Many Lives, Many Masters.
Ooh,
I don't know if you've read it.
I have. That's a good one.
Awesome. Well, one of the main things that when he talks to his patients, so it's a psychiatrist, I think.
And he does like trance meditations and drops people back into past lives.
Yeah. So I'm listening to the book and he's talking to this lady and, they're going back and forth about like, what does it mean? Why does she keep traveling back in like, I don't know, 1500s and et cetera, et cetera. And there's a part that she talks and she's like, I saw her guide, or I don't remember what it was. And I was like, what is all of this about? Like, what for? And her guide is like, focus on being whole and leave the rest behind. And I was like,
wow.
Out of all the like lessons, like for that, like one word, like it wasn't like a extended message. It was like, be whole. And then her message was like, focus on being whole and like ignore the rest. And I was like, I should probably figure out what that means.
So have you figured it out? I was going to ask you, like, what does that mean in context of your life and what you're moving through at the time?
Yeah. Ongoing process. I'm in a huge transition now. So like a lot of it is still like pieces that are kind of floating together and I'm like picking them and putting them together. But it kind of took my attention, I think, off of like outside things and into myself, because outside things don't make you whole. Like you need to, feel, whether it's your self-esteem or your, however you show up in life, it's like that needs to be, like you don't need to like worry about other people and fixing them or whatever. Like just focus on yourself and learn what wholeness even means. Because I think, we kind of prescribe like these outside things outside of ourselves to.
Yeah, that's what we're programmed, right? Looking for the thing to fill that void within ourselves externally.
Right.
And so realizing it's an inside job.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes when I just don't have an answer, I'm like, literally I don't need to explain how to, like, what will make you feel whole, you know? And I try to be like, okay, another person that I would want to be like, hey, you should, feel whole. Like, how would I want them to feel? And like, and it's more of like a feeling, I guess, kind of hard to describe, of like just completeness, like not lacking, not needing XYZ to be me, to be, I don't need like right now I'm in a career transition, just retired from basketball. Like, I don't need a career to define me. I don't need my, location, like geographical location or people. Like, the people part is hard for me because I think my entire life is like about relationships. So that one is really hard to learn to like love without attachment, without like the, trying to own the person and control them kind of. Because I think in a way, that's what we end up doing a lot of the times. You love someone, like not even romantically, like even your friends, and you're like, well, I want to like hang out with you. Like, I want you to come to like my birthday, my party, like all these things. And it's like, people are also living their lives. And like, it's not that, obviously like your good friend will show up for you, but also understanding that like they're living their own experience. And like, that doesn't mean anything about their love and care for you. Like, stop the controlling, like there are other things that are more important than, constantly being like, I want you here, I want you there, I want you there. And like,
Are you kind of bossy with your relationships and have that high expectations?
I've been told a time or two. I'm working on it.
So what is this? Is this just like expectations of, if you're going to be my friend, I expect you to show up for me in XYZ way?
I think it's the way I am. I'm very like, I'm all in.
Okay.
With anything.
Ride or die.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm here. I mean, like my best friend is like, dude, don't call me. Like, I don't want to answer for a date. Like, I just want a date to myself. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't love me? Like, I want to hang out with you. Why wouldn't you want to hang out with me? Because I'm always like, I love being around people. Like, I love my quiet time. But like, if my best friend is in town, I'm like, let's do all the things at all times. So I kind of expect others to feel the same. And like, my best friend is opposite. He's like,
some people need some space.
Yeah, he's like, I don't feel that way. Like, I love you. I want to be around you. But like, not all the time.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from?
I would love for someone to tell me. Like, if someone
well, let's dive in.
If someone can please explain to me and how to get rid of it, because it's like I can feel it coming over me and being like, oh, like this like anxiety of like, well, like what does this mean? Like, does this define our relationship, our friendship? And sometimes I like get into panic mode, but I've been getting a lot better.
Well, I mean, we were just hanging out before we dropped in here, and you were telling me a little bit about your childhood and leaving Ukraine at the age of 8 to live in America.
14.
At 14. For 8 years.
4 years.
14 to 22. So you moved to US at 14 without your parents, not speaking English, living with a random family.
Yes.
So just thinking about the psychological impact that imprinted on who you are, and feeling maybe abandoned, maybe rejected, maybe something where your family's like, you're in an environment where you're kind of untethered. You don't really have a grounded thing at that age. It can be really intense. I can only imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah, I think like the good part about it is like, you're 14, you don't speak the language, you've never been, like I've been to other countries before, but I think I went to like Turkey for a basketball tournament or something. But like, you go for a sports trip, you see the airport, the gym, and the hotel. You're not going anywhere. So I didn't really see anything. I lived in Poland with my dad, but Poland, Ukraine, very similar. And I think we went to like Russia or something to visit my grandma. I don't remember that because I was really little. So I haven't really been anywhere. So like everything was so new. And I think it helped because I was just like, I don't know what to expect. We didn't have internet. Like once in a while on Saturdays, I think we watched like a travel channel show with my mom, and we would be like, one day we're gonna go to like, some beach somewhere, and we would talk about it. So it was just so weird. And I ended up in Miami, out of all places.
Wow. So why did you go there? Take us through why you left home at 14 to come to the US.
Who knows? I know that they had, there was a guy that came to our city. I'm from Mykolaiv. It's in the south of Ukraine by the Black Sea. And we had a men's team. So my dad used to play professionally for that men's team. And there was this American guy. I don't know if it was like maybe those athletes in action or something. I don't know. Some people came, they did basketball thing, and they put like little clinic for the kids. And I think they were like recruiting, trying to find like local talent to take,
the hidden talent.
overseas. And 3 of the kids, they were older than me, 1 girl and 2 guys, they had already gone to the same high school. They were, 1 graduated and 2 were, older than me. And I don't know, I guess, I don't know what went on behind the scenes because like I was 14. Nobody asked me anything.
And you were tall back then too.
I was tall, I was
this girl
basically 6'4", like 165 pound little string bean. But they came and they did a little session. I could tell that the guy was like really paying attention to me. Like he was giving me more attention than everybody else. And I was just like, I must be cool. I'm 14.
They probably see a 6'4", 14-year-old. They're like, oh my gosh.
I don't know. And
this is the next prodigy of women's basketball.
So I end up, my dad, I remember, sat me down in the summer and he was like, hey, like, there's an opportunity for you to go to the United States. Do you want to go? And I was just like, yeah, cool.
Really?
And he was like, and it was nighttime outside, I remember. And he was like, we're sitting in the kitchen. And he goes, well, it's the same as like you walking out right now, like out of this apartment and like just going and like, that's how it's going to feel. And I was like,
I could feel that right now. That felt pretty intense.
Right now, I would not go outside in the dark. Me at 14, not like you don't know life. I think like there's no way you could tell me now, like even before going overseas to go play basketball, like I would cry. I fully would have meltdowns like the day before leaving or when I came home for Christmas break and I just would not want to go. Like I would cry. And then I was just like, oh yeah, I'm leaving. Yeah, cool. Go to school. Yeah, no problem. Leave my friends, my basketball team,
your family,
everything, my family.
Everything.
And I was just like, yeah, okay. And he was like, I don't remember if it was the same day, but we were in the same position, the same kitchen. And he was like, if you ever do drugs, I will kill you. I was like, cool, Dad. All right. If only he knew. But like, yeah, that's what he told me. And then I remember I went for the whole summer with the national team. I played like 14 or 15 U. We came back from Turkey and I had a week and I had 1 duffel bag and a backpack. And I boarded the plane, went to Miami and didn't come back for 8 years. That was unplanned.
How long was it until you tried drugs for the first time?
Oh, it was a while. It was a while. I think I smoked weed maybe like, it was after college, way after college.
Okay.
And then I was kind of like, this doesn't feel good because everyone who was introducing me to it, it was like recreational. And I wasn't into that. I was like, you can't function. This sucks. Like, I don't like it. And then I don't know how I build up tolerance or something. And I started using it for more like therapeutic reasons because I started
learning. During your playing days with basketball?
Yeah. So obviously like I couldn't do it during the season. So every summer.
Because you guys got drug tested?
Yes.
During the season? How was that?
Last year, let me tell you, I played in Belgium, which if anyone knows geography, it's very close to Amsterdam. Belgium is also the cocaine capital of the world now. Apparently.
Really?
Like they're super.
Need to get out to Belgium.
Druggy there.
Let's go.
I was there. So I was super excited. I was like, oh my God, I could do all the shrooms, all the weed, Amsterdam is right there. We got drug tested 9 times.
While you were there, because they knew?
8 months. I have no idea why. I didn't get drug tested 9 times in my 14 years.
Did you ever fail?
No.
During that? You just
I'm a
knew?
little too smart for that. Yeah. No, I wasn't going to jeopardize my career for smoking or whatever, even though
So you knew when the drug tests were going to be roughly, and so you knew not to smoke?
No, I didn't smoke the entire season. A month before I would stop. And so I only did it in the summer.
In the off season, okay.
In the off season, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would be back usually in Houston, and I had my car therapy sessions. So I would go during sunset. You could see the sky changing colors, and I would just be in my car. And I felt like my car was like the only thing that I owned, and it was mine. And it's like inside of it, like it's just me. Even though I lived with people that like I absolutely love and adore, and like they're like, this is your room, this is your house, like.
But I think you have a similar energy as to me. Is like if you're around people, then you're like either like connecting with them or you're like connected to their energy somehow.
Yeah.
So it seems like the car was your safe space to like be with yourself.
It's just me. Yeah, it's just me. And it's like, even though you don't like decorate your car, but I'm like, I don't know, this is mine. So I would just sit there and I have on my playlist. If you're smoking, I would roll down the window, play my music and watch the sunset and smoke. And then I didn't really have any specific intention, but I would just be like, all right, like show me what's up. And I got like a few insights that I was like, oh, this is like therapy. And I started calling it car therapy. So my friend and my roommate that I was living with, they would always be like, going for car therapy? And I just, because at night I'm like going downstairs, I'm like filling up my, water or smoothie. And I'm just like with my little pouch, all my weed stuff. And they're like, car therapy time. Like, yeah.
Cannabis meditations.
It was awesome.
It's a powerful plant for that. When you use it to sit and have stillness and listen, like it connects you to something greater than yourself.
Absolutely. And that's what I also started meditating with it, because I was like, oh, like I told you, the Joe Dispenza meditation, amazing. It takes me a freaking hour. And I'm like, if I could get there faster, why not? So I would like smoke and meditate, or just smoke and let it, take me wherever. But then I like felt like I was cheating a little bit sometimes. And I was like, maybe
then the judgment comes in.
Yeah. And I don't
Should
know.
I be smoking this much?
Yeah. Then
Am
also,
I using it in the right way?
My tolerance got so high. This got really expensive really fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I have to like, cycle through this. So
I feel that. I'd still dance with my relationship, but when I use it intentionally, it's so powerful, and then I just start using it a little bit too much. And then I gotta peel it back.
So one of my main reasons for using it was while I played, and I didn't realize that it stopped as soon as I stopped playing, it would take me up to 2 hours to go to sleep. Don't know, like after games, understandable, adrenaline, blah, blah, blah. And like we played late games like at 8 p.m. So like you're not done by 10. You're not home by like 12 by the time you eat and all that. So I had a hard time. Like I would be after games awake till 7 a.m. And, that was the only thing that would help me go to sleep faster. And even in the summer, I would like ruminate, lay there. I feel like while I was playing, I just had this like constant low level background anxiety or something like that, stress of some sort that just never went away.
What is it? What would you?
I think it's like, that even when you're off, you're never off.
As an athlete.
Yeah.
Yep.
Off season, it doesn't freaking matter. You have a week off, for Christmas break. I'm flying home, but I'm still like, okay, like don't get injured, eat right, sleep right. You need to be in shape. You need to get in a few workouts, Like anything you're doing is constantly like, how does this affect my body? How does this affect my performance? And it's maybe at the beginning it was more conscious, but then after a while, it's something that just happens in the back of your mind. And before I retired, I informally interviewed like some of my friends who have retired already. And I was like, so what changed? Like, tell me. And several of them mentioned that they were like, you know what? I'm not stressed anymore. Like, I wake up and it's like, oh, it's good from the beginning. Like I'm enjoying myself. And I noticed the same thing, particularly with sleep, that I fall asleep within 15 minutes. And I'm not doing anything crazy. I work out in the morning for 1 hour and then I like read, study.
Because you don't have this performance anxiety that's always humming at you.
Yeah. I thought I had sleep problems, but no, it was basketball.
Wow. What was the intention of interviewing your friends that had retired? Was it you were preparing for your own retirement and you understood that the transition is a difficult thing and you wanted to prepare for that?
Well, I've read so much stuff about it and everybody's just like, oh my gosh, this identity crisis, like loss of identity, you don't know what to do, And I was like, I don't necessarily feel like that because I've never introduced myself as like Val, the basketball player. Like, I never led with that. I never tell anyone like I was drafted or played in the WNBA like that. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's almost like embarrassing sometimes. I'm like, I'm not tooting my own horn. And so I always like try to identify with other things as well as basketball, like not, completely ignoring it. But yeah, so I knew I wanted to do other things and I'm not going to suffer as much from that. But I was like, what else is there? Like, what changes, like what could be different? And
what were some of the things that your friend said?
Well, one of them was like, okay, the loss, the anxiety kind of like simmered down. Then they also—
That's a plus. That's a pro to the retirement.
It was super good, yeah. Another thing was they said you don't experience the highs and lows, which was, neither here nor there. Like highs are great, but lows are also very, like I felt like when I played, like my highs were so much higher, but the lows were just so freaking low. And they were like, no, it's more like a little wiggly line, like in the middle. It doesn't like, the amplitude is just not as high. What else did they say? They said like they definitely noticed the difference between like non-athlete colleagues and athlete ones. They were like, man, we are like different people. You develop different skills. And all of the stuff that I thought was just normal, like, you're like adaptability, like persistence, motivation, like kind of self-starter mentality, all that stuff. I thought it was kind of like, well, driven people just have that.
Yeah. And when you're in a locker room, you're around everybody that has that to a different degree. So like someone that doesn't have it as strong as like the best player, you're like, oh, that person just kind of slacking. But compared to the world, that person has a better work ethic than everybody.
And that blew my mind when I stopped and I was, one of my friends was helping me to write a resume. And she was like, okay, well, all the skills that you learned or that you like acquired through basketball, like just, translated into work world. And I was like, what skills? What are you talking about? What, like?
Yeah, shooting a 3-pointer.
Yeah, like, what do you mean? And I like, honestly, to this day, I mean, my resume I'm going to need help with it. But like, because I honestly, to this day, I'm still figuring out like what the difference is. And one of my best friends, he always like helps me. He's like, you understand that like you and your people, the athletes, he's like, you're not normal. And then he was like, you specifically are not normal within your group. So like certain things that I'm like, it's a given. You should do it. This is when like my bossy part comes in. And I'm just like, no, easy. Like you have internet, like answers are out there. Like I'm very much like figure it out. And he's like, no, that's not how other people operate. Like this is very different. And I'm just like, does this pay somewhere? Like how much is it worth?
like where, but how do I apply it?
Yeah, what do I do?
It's overwhelming. I think that's one of the big things, like transitioning out of sports is like you have the opportunity, like infinite opportunities really, but it's so overwhelming because as an athlete, everything is like laid out for you in
Absolutely.
a row. I know exactly what I need to do to be successful.
I had a meltdown this past Saturday. It was right on time. Q2 meltdown. And I was just like, I'm overwhelmed with like the amount of changes that took place and the amount of possibilities. Because I feel like the rug was pulled from under me. I retired. I was preparing to retire. I wanted to retire, but also a lot of it was fueled by the war in Ukraine. I was just like, I can't keep playing. Like I was like frazzled and I was like, I don't have a home anymore. So I was like, I have to move, to the States or whatever, somewhere else. But I've spent most of my time in the States. So I was like, I have to move. I have to get a job. Like now I'm going to have to help my parents. They have a grocery store back home. But like in week 1 or 2 of the war, their store is on the corner of 2 busy streets. And it's like an old house that was remodeled, rebuilt into like a corner store. So they still have like the garage and like the backyard and stuff. Well, they came to check on the store and the local army people were storing ammunition there. So it was like these like rockets, I don't know, I'm going to be totally wrong, but like missiles just like stacked in their backyard. They were like, yeah, this is now our post, thanks. My mom was like, cool, yeah. So like their store hasn't been, they were kind of like selling out all of their stuff, like emptying the inventory. But after they were like, what are we going to do? Like tell our cashiers to like go to work while there's like sirens and raids and, they're getting bombed from every side. Like, and then the supply chain was disrupted. Obviously, like they can't get produce, blah, blah, blah. So they're not working. And I'm just like.
So you feel like you have to support them financially because they're not able to work?
I mean, yeah. And for now, they're okay. Like, they're not, Ukraine is pretty cheap. So I'm like, okay, as soon as I can get all my paperwork together, get a job, like, I know that they can live on like $1,000 a month, like plenty.
Cool. And you can send that over to them.
And they can travel. Like, it's probably like even less than that. And between me and my sister lives in the US as well. I was like, that's $500 each. Like, that's easy, to make sure that they don't have to. I mean, like, they're in their 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it would be nice.
Yeah. You retired 11 months ago? Pretty fresh.
April 30th, yeah.
So it's fresh for you. So before we get into some of the stuff and your connection to Ukraine, obviously growing up there in the war, really looking forward to diving into that. But let's take it back to the career because you played a long time.
Yeah.
Basketball. 14 years professionally?
14 years, yep.
And you just retired. That's a long time. What's the average career for a woman basketball player?
Not 14 years. Yeah. I think women retire I would say close to 30, like late 20s, because you like kind of have your best years like around 27, I would say, something like that. And then, I mean, obviously women, so like you'll have kids. Some will come back, others choose not to. But I feel like usually around 30. I've been the oldest player in every team since I was 28.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, 28 on, like I would have maybe someone my age, but no one older than me.
That's pretty impressive.
So I mean.
So take us back. So you played at Rice.
Yeah.
Had an opportunity to play some college basketball, and then got drafted to the WNBA?
I got drafted the pick before last. Whoop, whoop.
Whoa, nice.
I got, barely squeezed in. I got drafted to Detroit.
How many women are drafted in the WNBA each year?
It was 43 that year.
Okay, it's changed a little bit now.
Yeah. Because I think there's less teams now, and then there's less spots on the roster, so I don't know how many.
How many teams are there in the WNBA?
Maybe 12 now. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It was 14 back then.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And so you got an opportunity. You didn't play long in the WNBA. You ended up going overseas.
Yeah. So I ended up going to Detroit to not draft camp. What is this? Whatever. Training camp. Horrible experience. I played, for anyone that knows basketball, Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn. They were part of the bad boys of Detroit Pistons. They coached the same way they played.
The women's basketball team.
We were called bitches, the white bitches. And
really?
Oh my God.
This is before this is internet and like social media.
Yeah. It was very.
That wouldn't fly nowadays, right?
Everyone on the team was like in that same spirit, like I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I did not fit into that. And I just, one day, we were just at practice and I was like, I don't freaking want to be here. And I'm like, how do I had I known that I could just be like, bro, this is not for me. Like, there's no way I'm staying here all season. I would have done it. I would have said that. But I just one day kind of was like, I am not doing this. This is horrible. Like, if this is what basketball is, I'm going to go get a job. Like, this is atrocious.
Wow.
So I ended up getting cut with like the last round of people. And I remember Rick Mahorn called me in his office and he was like, what the hell? Like, you were on the team. Like, we were keeping you. Like, what happened out there? And I was like, I don't want to be here. Like, this is horrible. But I said it like, I'm sure nicer because I was like 18 or something.
So were you kind of not trying as hard and that's why they cut you? And then they asked like, what happened as far as your play kind of fell off?
Yeah, I think it was just one specific practice that they could tell like by my, my face, my body language.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is not, if this is what it is, like, I don't want to do it. And he was just like, what the hell? And I was like, gotta go. So I went to Sacramento after, like had a little week-long thing there, but they already had their roster. Like, I think I just came like as a filler. And then I ended up at the end of the summer getting signed to San Antonio, which is now Las Vegas Aces. And that was like complete 180. Amazing teammates, amazing coach, just very patient, very like, focused on teaching you and respectful, and everybody's very supportive. I loved it. It was great. But by then, in between those like Detroit and San Antonio, I signed to go to France to play during the regular season, which is September through May. And they were like, yeah, no, you need to be here September 1st. So I couldn't stay for the rest of the season on the San Antonio team, which I regret. Why
do you regret it?
They went to the playoffs to play against Detroit, who ended up winning.
Detroit won?
Detroit ended up winning, yeah.
With the same team that you're like,
same
fuck
team
those
that
guys.
I was like, yeah. And you know what? More power to them. Congrats. Would not want to be there, even on the championship team. Like, I would have rather lost.
Very telling.
I would have rather lost with San Antonio than won with Detroit. That's how bad it was. They were so rude. It was very like, that old school, like, tough love. It's not even love. It's just a tough.
Being an asshole.
Just being, yeah.
Narcissist.
Like, I remember I sat between these two girls. They were veterans. One was a daughter of a prominent player, whatever, leave her alone. But I was sitting between them and she was like, I never have space here. It's just like so freaking crowded. And the other girl that was sitting on the other side of me, she was like, oh, like my bad, I'll move my stuff. And she's like, no, not you. I was like, you go fuck yourself. Like, honestly, like.
That kind of drama, huh?
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, this is day one. Like, you don't even know my name yet. And then we would go in the shower and, it's like that I don't know, communal showers, not separate stalls. And, I get in, I'm like, whatever, showering. She walks in and just like doesn't say anything. She just looks at me and just like does this, like waves me off from her shower. And I was like, I'm not going to be here. Like, this is not going to work.
That makes me sick to my stomach.
It was
so gross.
It was gross. Yeah, she would come in and just like not greet anyone.
Is that a part of the culture in the WNBA period, or is it just certain players, or was it just that specific player?
I think it's more so that specific player on that specific team. That's who they looked for. I think because a lot of people on the team were like
prima donna, superstar.
I mean, this was like, the bad boys of Detroit Pistons.
Yeah,
like
so they're trying to cultivate that energy.
Yeah, it's the same stuff. And I was just like, I freaking hated it. But when I went to Sacramento, was not like that. San Antonio, completely different. Super supportive. Like my vets were like, like they were always pushing me and like, but in a very like building up way, they were just like, hey, push yourself now. You won't have to like struggle in the game or in like, I remember I didn't like play much. So when I got in, we played in Phoenix, I think. And I got in and I remember like my first shot I took, I missed it. But they all got up.
Wasn't an air ball, was it?
No. It was like a respectable miss.
It was a good shot. It was a good shot.
Respectable miss. But they all like got up on the bench and like they got excited, and it was really cool to like feel that behind you. Like the support. And like to this day, that was my favorite, experience. I was like, man, that was really cool to play with like this high level people, like high level talent, but then like humanly, like they were just nice people, like coaches, the trainer lady, like super awesome. So yeah, that was great. But
it's cool to reflect on the importance of culture within athletic teams. Like I'm really grateful that I got a chance to play for 2 different professional teams. And I've heard from obviously different people I've been connected with on different teams, like how different they actually are.
Yeah.
Each organization, like as a fan, it's like the NFL as a whole, it must be very similar between the teams, but they're so different. They're their own entire businesses within themselves, own leadership, own culture, and how they do things, where they spend money, like how they delegate stuff. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I was actually telling someone the other day, I was at some sports bar and one of the, the March Madness games was happening. And someone we started talking about why I don't watch really basketball. I needed to take a year off to from watching sports, following and everything. But I was coming from being a player, I understand that when you watch a game, you're seeing 50% of what's going on. The feeling of being on the court, to people from outside, it's, Duke and Kentucky playing. But on the inside, the type of struggle you have against certain players. You understand that okay, they play dirty. We have to get ready for, a dirty game. So the mentality going into the game changes. The feeling on the court changes. With some people, you're oh, I got it. This is a mismatch. I'm going to have an easy day. So to the outside, it all seems the same. But on the inside, then you understand the team drama. You understand that so-and-so is in trouble. So-and-so doesn't get along with the coach. Those two maybe are dating or somebody else is beefing on some kind of level. And it's when you play, you understand that because you're ranked somewhere doesn't mean much. Because there's always those bottom teams that you're we have to play. We have to come and play against them the way we play against the top team. Because they're those they always end up losing, but you give them an inch, they're taking
If you lose to them, then you're going to be just
and they're they're tough to beat. You're going to beat them, but it's it's going to be a struggle. I think you can't see a lot of that stuff as a spectator, especially as a spectator that never played.
Mm-hmm.
So when I watch now, the other day, I watched 2 of my friends play in France, and I'm it's not the same. I don't know the dynamics between people because oh man, they hate playing with her. Oh, she takes every ball. And you see the body language, what to look for of when the one girl comes in and it's she's going to take 30 shots in 20 minutes. And you kind of everybody's oh my God, there's we never
pass the ball.
Yeah. But it's those things that make the game even more exciting. And you don't get to see that as from outside. And from having experienced the full kind of experience of it. Now I'm just nah, I'm just getting 50%. This is not.
So you don't really want to watch it?
No, not yet. I'm also like freshly out of it. I want to
need to create some space.
Yeah.
I was the same way.
I'm trying to figure out what do I want to take with me and what do I want to leave. How do I want to continue? Because I mentioned to you before, like I'm very like, I want to be all in. When I was in basketball, it was hard for me to do anything else because I'm like, I'm all in, even though I'm not like ball is life person. But it's still like my mental, I'm like, I'm always thinking about basketball. So now that I'm done, I'm like, I don't want to keep carrying that like a little bit of like, I'm still good. I could still play. I'm still going to do an open gym or something. I'm like, no, like I want to get into others. Like I want to get great at something else. I want to find other things where I can apply these new skills that I learned in basketball and like be even better at something else. And just kind of keep on evolving, keep on living different lives. That's like one of my things. Like I want to keep living different lives. I live the basketball life. There's nothing else for me. I'm not going to achieve anything more if I play another 2-3 years. Like it's just going to be repetitive.
You've given it everything you have.
Yeah. And I got as good as I think I will get. Like, your like sports IQ kind of keeps going up. You keep getting smarter, right? Your body, not so much. There's there's a cross section, you hit your peak and then it just like starts kind of like, all right, well, this is now harder for me, for my body to execute. Like I'm hurting more, I need to warm up more, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not the same. There's a point of like, all right, like I'm not getting any more returns out of this. So
but you have an IQ with basketball that's probably second to none. I mean, playing that long professionally.
Right. And I feel like I mean, like I'm not going to say I'm like the best of the best, but I feel like I'm in a good position to help my teammates, to make the team better when I'm on the court, not necessarily in like active, like scoring, rebounding, like stat wise, but like I know how to set up other people.
How the game works.
Yeah. You help like the younger ones. They have all the energy. I'm like, girl, you go score. I'm going to set you an amazing pick. Or I'm like, hey, I'm going to get the ball. You just cut to the basket. You're really fast. And I'm just going to give you the pass. You can have all the points. Have all of them. Like, I don't care. But just like.
Has it always been like that throughout your career? The selfless kind of give it to the younger.
Yeah. I remember I was even in college, like towards, my junior, senior year, I was like one of the best players on the team. And they used to be like, stop passing. Please stop passing the ball. Just score. And I'm like, no, but they're more open than me. Like, I'm like always trying to find the path of least resistance. I'm like, work smarter, not harder. Like, people always wanted me to like bang under the basket because at that time, so I'm 6'4". At that time, I was maybe like over 200 pounds, like between 210, 220. Now I'm like closer to like 190, 195. So there was like extra 25 pounds. And so I was playing the 5 and I was under the basket. Everybody expects you to like bang down there. And I'm like, this is freaking exhausting. Like, this is stupid. If I could like, shoot a 3 or shoot from outside, why am I going to subject myself to this abuse down here when I am as effective somewhere else? So over the years, like I kind of, changed my game, but I still love passing.
Started getting out towards that 3-point line a little bit more.
And I don't know if it's like, the weight loss preceded that or followed that. But I definitely like, when I became like true, like, okay, you're a 4, I was like 25 pounds to 30 pounds lighter than.
It's probably easier on your knees and your hips.
And also, well, that's why I started learning about nutrition. I think it was my 2nd or 3rd year overseas and I hit 220. And I remember my coach was like, hey, because 220 is 100 kilos. And, in Europe, it's kilos. So for them to see like a triple digit, it's like, whoa, buddy. Like,
so they had to sit you down and have that conversation go.
And my coach was like, hey, are you like okay playing with this weight? And I was like, I'm top 10 in scoring in this country. Yes, I'm okay. But then I bought some books and I was like, I should probably learn about nutrition. So I started like.
What was your diet like during that time?
Okay, so to this day, I do not like cooking, do not like spending time in the kitchen. I didn't know, I didn't know my way around the kitchen. So my first few years I was in France and I would just like buy a baguette, slap whatever on there, would make all these sandwiches. So I'm an amazing sandwich maker. I hate admitting that, but I am. And I would just eat like, I don't know, croissants, Nutella, something. I'd make an occasional salad.
What makes a good sandwich?
Oh man. The combo of all the flavors. You can't just put like same taste of like, I don't know, boiled chicken and cheese and avocado. That's like very like you need to put some onion in there. You need some crunch. You need different textures. You need different like, something, maybe a little spicy. I'll throw a little razzle dazzle of spice to kind of,
Spice like a cayenne in there or like a spread that has spice on it?
No,
like
usually
mustard?
like a cayenne or something like that.
Okay. Just a little like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah, so it's not all the same. kind of mild. Because even if you put like an egg and chicken and avocado, it's like none of them, unless your chicken is like super seasoned in something, like you're not gonna have the
So
like,
it needs it needs the texture.
and then the bread. So the bread has to be like nice and crunchy. So like the French baguette is very crunchy on the outside and super soft on the inside, to where you can make it like a boat. So you put all your stuff in there, and this like
really pack it full.
Yeah. So like I like also to like make my entire meal on a piece of bread. So I will put mashed potatoes, chicken, and salad, like the whole thing, and just like.
So you like any dinner that you make, you
I would put on the bread.
A bread.
Yeah,
it's a sandwich.
that was a problem. Because bread is amazing. So
oh man, I can only imagine.
It was heavy on the bread there.
So you started learning about nutrition. What did you learn? What was the big shift?
Yeah.
Less bread.
First of all, yeah. So
I'll eat better, but I'm not gonna let go of my bread.
So yeah, I had to do that. It was kind of gradual. I never ate necessarily bad. Like I didn't have super bad habits. Like I still don't eat fast food. We didn't have the first McDonald's we had in Ukraine, like in my city, was in the year 2000. It was right before I left to go to the States. And I think I had fast food maybe once or twice. I think we had like KFC and McDonald's when we lived in Poland. And I remember like first time getting the McDonald's shake, like the chocolate shake. And I was little. And I was like trying to like, sip it through the straw. And everybody's like, go, you got it. And it was like, moving super slow. So I was never into that. And then growing up in USSR, like my first 5 years, it was still USSR. So we didn't have any of the foreign stuff. So my dad would travel for basketball and would bring back like ketchup.
That was a big novelty, huh?
That was, we had one of each thing, and it was usually gray colored. So he would bring ketchup. What do we have? We had Snickers. I remember my dad brought this entire case of like Snickers, and my mom would let us take one bite before bed. Listen, this is USSR. She did the best she could. But like, yeah, me and my sister would take a bite of Snickers before bed. That was like our treat. And like, you couldn't have the whole thing. Like, it's just a bite. There was something else. I don't remember. I remember just like having this like case of ketchup in these Snicker bars. And like, yeah, so we weren't exposed to a lot of that stuff. We just didn't have it.
And this is just because it's not a free market. There's a communist country. So like one item of like yogurt, you got one option for.
And I'm not even sure how. Oh, I guess he was bringing it in after 91. So after the USSR fell apart, you could bring in foreign products. But before that, my dad told me he went to Mexico with his team. They went on some kind of international competition. And he said he comes out of the airport. And like when you're in Mexico, they greet you with all the like brochures. And they're like, hey, come take this tour. Come with us, blah, blah, blah. And so he goes like, this guy comes up to him and just hands like a flyer. My dad, he was like, I panicked. I almost ran out of there because like that's contraband. Like that's what is it? Oh my gosh, what is it called? Whatever, contraband. I'm going to think of the word. And he like, if you bring that back, you get sent to jail. So
it accidentally gets lost in his luggage, or he puts it in his pocket and they find it.
They were freaking out because somebody gave one of his teammates like a picture frame. There was no picture. They gave him picture frame, but it had that stock photo inside. And that was propaganda is the word I was trying to think
Propaganda.
of. That was propaganda. That was Western propaganda, and you get sent to jail for that.
Wow.
My grandpa's dad, so my great grandpa, worked. So we live, my city in Ukraine is on the river connecting like to the Black Sea. So it's a big port city. So my great grandpa worked on one of the ships, and obviously they have a lot of international traffic. And someone came from Cuba and gave him a cigar. And that was the last time anyone saw him. Like he got clocked for having this cigar from this, this contraband essentially. And they never saw him again.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Nobody went and looked for him, or is it just he went to jail?
No, he like went, I'm pretty sure he like died somewhere, somehow. Like, but yeah, they essentially like, I don't know if there was time in between like him getting it and then someone finding out and, telling on him.
Yeah.
But
they just take it really seriously.
But yeah,
the whole country.
It was in the USSR, like you couldn't, there was no TV channels from outside. You couldn't leave the USSR bloc. Like you could not travel to another, like you're not allowed to leave. It's like North Korea, essentially.
Wow.
So my dad was able to go because of basketball. So he's seen some stuff. And then obviously like after 91, when the borders opened, like
So your dad was Russian?
No, he's Ukraine. Well, his family was from Russia, but when he was younger, moved to like the Ukrainian territory of USSR and played basketball there.
So during that time, the Ukrainian was a USSR territory?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then he met my mom, had me, but like, I think he moved there in his teens or something.
Mm-hmm.
So once they broke up and like you had to choose your nationality, I guess, choose where you're going to move or whatever, like they stayed in Ukraine and both of them Ukrainian.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a gift that must have been for him to see the world in that way when none of his countrymen really had an opportunity.
Yeah. I need to ask about that actually.
What a trip.
How does that feel when you just...
I mean, you come back and you see Mexico and you're like, the world is so different out there.
Yeah.
It's like being North Korean and being like able to travel and then be like, whoa, we're actually like, this isn't...
And you can't even talk about it because it's, well, A, it's like not allowed, but B, like, where are you going to find this? There's no internet, there's no foreign books, there's no foreign TV. Like you are completely closed in. So I can't even imagine like what, that was even like. I guess if you're born into it, like you don't know what you don't know.
Programmed.
But like for him to travel and to see things, to be like, oh.
That's why travel is so important, right? Like being able to travel and see a different culture. Like the first time I left the US, I went to Costa Rica and I was really scared. I was like always told like it's a scary world out there.
Yeah.
Be careful. And nothing's as good as America. And then I went there and like just the fact like different language and seeing the way people lived, and it was so different. And it first made me really appreciate the life and the privilege that I have for living in a country that's, so wealthy in the first place, but then just the different language, but then how happy everybody was. And it's like, I thought everybody was like just really scary, but it's like, no, these are really just humans.
They're
like
just
living life.
their life. Yeah.
So I can't imagine going somewhere like that, like USSR. And then
I need to ask him, like, I didn't even think to like ask, like, what was that like to, while it was still USSR, to like get out and be like, hey.
Do you know the history of like what happened with Ukraine? And so during that falling apart, the USSR fell apart, Ukraine became its own territory then, or what's the history there?
Oh, don't quote me on any of that. Yeah. I mean, it was its own territory before, and then, USSR, that was so long. That was for so long as well. But like, no, Ukraine was its own, there was never like not a border, not never, in the recent history, like, over time, of course, like borders move and et cetera. But ever since, like, I don't know, civilized society where we like established some kind of a border, like Ukraine has been Ukraine. We have our own language, our own culture, our own, food, everything that's distinct from Russia or USSR or whatever. It's actually more, I find it closer to Poland. The language is way more similar to Polish. Food is kind of in between all of those, but no, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and you're still connected there. So you left when you were 14 and you didn't go back for 8 years. You didn't see your family for 8 years.
Yeah.
And you went back when you were 22 again?
22, yeah. It was my first year overseas and we had a Christmas break and I went home and it was so weird.
What was it like?
Oh man, it was strange. My dad met me at the airport and I remember like
First time seeing him in 8 years.
First time. Wow. And like he picks me up at the airport. I mean, he's crying. And that like, I don't know if it was like the shock. And I was just like, Dad, what's up? Like, and not just being goofy. I think it was like nervous energy. I didn't know, like it was overwhelming. And I also like got used to being without my parents because like he had me until he was, God, I don't know, 30 something. So like that's, like to me, it was like, okay, I spent a lot of my, all of my teenage years away. So like I got used to it. So I was like, oh, this is life. Like you don't remember the first, like, I don't know, 5 years of your life. So it was only like 9-10 years.
Like half of your life you were gone.
Yeah, so I'm just like.
What was it like going like flying back? What was the leading up to, okay, I'm ready to go home? Like why did it take 8 years? And then what was it like actually flying there? What was going through your mind? Was there like excitement, nerves?
I don't remember, like I honestly don't remember being on the plane. I just remember getting off and like my dad being there and just like, crying. And we got in the car and we had to drive back like 8 hours. And I just remember being like, damn, like I'm really disconnected. Because,
From him.
From my entire family. Because when I left, this was 2000. We didn't have like internet home. I went to Miami, I, lived with a family, and they didn't have a computer at that time either. Sometime in the middle of like my high school years, I got an email, like, we had a computer at home for like 4, 5, 7 people had one computer. So I got an email, and what my parents had to do, this was wild. My mom had to write a letter by hand, take it to the post office. The post office assigned her an email address. She would give the letter to the person and be like, okay, send it to whatever, val@gmail.com. The person would type up the letter and email it to me. When I sent her an email, I send it to that, P.O. box, but like mail. I send it to them. They would print it out and then call my mom to come to the post office to pick up this letter. And that's how we exchanged emails for like years.
Why is that?
They didn't have computers at home. Like we didn't have internet. We didn't have a computer. So like they had to have a central like place for internet for people because not everyone can afford a computer at home.
What about phone calls? Were you able to talk to them on the phone?
At the beginning, I was using these calling cards.
Yeah.
But they were like, I don't know, $20. And you got like 3 to 5 minutes because like it depends on how far you're calling.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I had to write down questions and I'm like, we can't have any idle time. And I mean, what's, 5 minutes? And like, who's giving me the $20? Like,
I mean, this is something that's not even in the awareness of life right now.
No.
It's like it feels like
so
ages ago to even think about that. Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then they finally got a computer at home, which was like early for, Ukraine. So we started, and then MSN Messenger came about. So we would, type to each other live. So that was cool. And then sometime in college, cameras, like, remember the camera you put like in the USB and then you like attach it to the top of your screen? Webcam, yeah, that's what, and you had to buy like the speaker. So I had to like the whole big old laptop, big old speakers on the side and this camera. And it's always like fuzzy and stuff. So that's how we started seeing each other for the first time, sometime in college.
Wow.
Maybe
So before then, how often would you contact them via phone? Like a couple times a year, maybe?
Yeah, not a lot because it was expensive.
And it was mostly just once the instant messenger, how often would you stay in touch there?
I mean, like pretty often, but it wasn't enough to like.
You couldn't go deep, right? It was just superficial, checking in. Hey, how you doing? Thinking about
hey, everything is good. Like they still don't know like my life in the US. My mom still asks me if I write in English with mistakes, and I'm just like, girl.
I grew up here.
I speak better English than Russian. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. No, I don't write with mistakes. So it's like certain things like that she would just like, they don't understand still because like we miss so much of it that like now it's a little easier to reconnect with my sister. I think we're getting closer and closer because now she lives in the States. Like, so when she went, she was 19. So I was 27, I was already, oh my gosh, 19. I was 24. And, so we have more in common. She understands certain things that I'm trying to explain that like my parents still don't get like concept of credit cards. Like they have a bank card. Maybe now they have like a credit card, but until maybe 10 years ago, they were just keeping cash. And then my mom would travel. I played in Poland and like, they speak Polish. I'm a Polish resident. Like we have some Polish family. She would travel to Poland. I opened a bank account for her and I, like a joint one. And then she would put their money. And you can only travel with $10,000 at a time or something. So she would make multiple trips per year and like put money in her account. So that's how they finally got a bank account.
Wow.
Because you can't really have it in Ukraine because like it's not insured and it's a very sketchy situation.
They'll just like the bank could just take it.
It's just like, oh yeah, well you had it, now you don't. Wow. So yeah, they had to do a lot of that. Which is like, it's really wild, like thinking back on all the things.
Do you have a national pride of being Ukrainian? Is there a connection to the land still and the culture?
I didn't think I did until I think it was 2014 when the first the revolution started and they ousted like the old president. So he was basically Ukraine was trying to vote to move towards EU and kind of be more westernized. And the president was, one of Putin's buddies, essentially. And it was a big conflict that erupted between like peaceful protesters, and then he sent a whole bunch of like police, let's say, and they were just beating them up and
beating up the protesters.
Yeah, and like the whole
so it
country
got violent.
The whole country blew up. Like the entire center of the city was on fire. There was like rubber getting burned, people getting killed, like just bodies on the streets. It was freaking wild. I watched like a little bit of some documentary and I was like, I can't do it.
Can't watch it?
No.
Why was it just bringing
to
up?
This, it just it's like your own government. Like you're not safe anywhere, but seeing the people just like stand up, and despite the fact that like we're gonna get killed out there, and it was like winter, it was November in Ukraine, it was like below freezing, I don't know, snowing, and they're out there like fighting, and there's like supporting each other. Like my mom was driving the soldiers from like their base, like they were training somewhere, back into the city. Like they were sending blankets and food and like collecting all this stuff, and it was just like the unity of the entire country that's like, dude, shit got so bad that we have nothing to lose. Like, to me, I think I would be like more cowardly in this situation. I'm like, I have a lot going for myself. Like, I don't know, this sounds horrible. And like, I don't live there. So like, I don't have the same attachment to any country, like to where it's like, no, this is, ride or die here.
But it's not even the country, right? It's the ideal of they're fighting for freedom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just those people, I don't know. I remember I just cried so much being like, oh my God, like you're defending the country. Like that's what it means. And like just seeing it, not in like a context of a war when there's an army, there's trained, personnel.
Yeah, because it's like geopolitical.
Yeah, they're with freaking rakes and shovels.
Standing up for
they're
themselves.
Just like, fuck you, like you're not coming in here. And they ran this the president lived on, it's outside of the city. It's like its own city inside of a city. So it's completely gated. They have their, he has his own like palace, his own boats, rivers, zoo. Like it takes hours to walk around it. Like now
this
it's
is the
open.
president at the time?
At the time, yeah. Now it's open to public. He fled overnight, took like 7 helicopters with all his shit and like fled. And
because they were closing in on the actual...
they broke into there and they were just like, yeah. Wild. Like, and that's, to me, it's like, I don't know.
So they overthrew him, the government.
Yeah, he ran away. He's probably still claiming. He was claiming for years that like, I'm still the rightful president. We were like, yeah, sure. Come on back then.
So what happened? What happened after that took place? Was there peace after that? Who took over?
No, I don't remember who took over after that. But ever since then, that's when on the east side of Ukraine, on the border with Russia, that's when the war started there. And like it's been going on since 2014. And that's where they came in last year when Russia started like an official war. They came in, well, they bombed the entire country. They like launched missiles all over. But
Russia did,
yeah. But they came in through that area of eastern Ukraine that they're trying to, that's called the Donbass region, like that, they're trying to take the entire southeastern chunk of Ukraine to have access to like the Black Sea because they don't have any warm water port. And, they're claiming that Russian-speaking Ukrainians are getting harassed there and killed. And as a Russian-speaking Ukrainian, the only people harassing me are the Russians. Like, yeah. So, and that's
so are you familiar with the conflict? So the 2014. So there's always been conflict since that experience happened, but it was kind of in the background, wasn't really affecting.
Yeah, I think
much.
it was contained to that area, and it was more like, pow pow, we shoot, you shoot. It didn't like extend anywhere, and I don't know the details of it. Like just kind of like
so. There's like a lot of tension in the air.
Yeah,
a lot of verbal kind of.
And then last year, like starting in or maybe it was what was last year? So it was like maybe the end of 2021. Like there started to be kind of like talk about them building up more army reserves like on the border. And everybody was like, okay, what, like, this is more, it just was more than anything ever before. It was different.
And you're connected with your parents, obviously, who still live there.
Yeah.
Is that where you're getting a lot of this information from, or how do you stay connected?
Yeah, at the beginning I was following, they have maybe Telegram channel. It was one of the channels. And they were giving like live updates, like every raid, every siren, who got caught, they would put videos of everything. And like, that's how you kept up with all the news and like
how many people are on this Telegram channel?
Like hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah.
Wow.
And then your city had your own too. So I would follow my city's news channel. So it was the same. Like they would tell you, like, I don't know, food available there, like, hey, sirens, everybody hide, or like this building got blown up.
Like a really important information for people that are actually in the front lines of
But then I guess like obviously like somebody from outside like gets into these channels, so they had to like be like, all right, we can't tell the location of these things.
Oh yeah, because then anybody could join the channel.
Because that's kind of like very
espionage happening.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a little too open. Come on.
Holy shit.
But yeah, it was cool. And like it was cool. Cool, all things considered. But they would put like intercepted conversations of like the Russians and them calling home and being like, we're just getting killed out here. And
because the Russians actually putting up a front of like they're going to come conquer, but then actual internal messages from like, soldiers saying we're getting fucked up.
Yeah, they were, because Russia, I guess they didn't maintain all of their equipment and stuff. And they were just like, the defense department just like stealing money as they do. And so they had like
all this faulty equipment and shit.
Yeah, they had inside of the tanks, because a lot of the tanks were just, the villagers were ambushing them and blowing up the Russian tanks. Like that just warmed my heart. But they would have these little stools, like wooden stools inside that they were sitting on. There wasn't even like a proper equipment to...
So like kind of gutted to like the base thing.
You were going to like fight for your life, other people's life, and you're like sitting on this little taboret thing, whatever it's called. Stool.
And the Ukrainians put up a good fight, huh?
I mean, I feel like, you have nothing to lose and you're like, you're in my territory. Like I'm not, because I feel like a lot of them, like as aggressors, like some people for sure think that, it's their right or whatever. But a lot of people are like, this is stupid. And that's why hundreds of thousands of men fled Russia and they're now living in exile, essentially, like, because they're getting drafted. So a lot of people don't agree with it. And I can't even imagine, as someone who sees that like your country is going to war on unjust, completely like stupid, falsified basis, and now you have to kill. Like that's wild. If you have any kind of consciousness, like that's wild to me. Mm-hmm. So I can't even imagine for them having to do that. And then there's others that just like, they were going in, robbing, raping, stealing. Like somebody took a freaking washing machine. They like killed this older couple, stole their mink coats because it's cold over there. So everybody like fur is very popular. And it's like, I hate this, but it's very like Eastern European woman's thing. Like the first thing when you become a woman, you get a fur coat. That's your like rite of passage. I don't know, it's dumb, but whatever. So they were stealing all the like coats, jewelry, and like washing machines, like appliances. We're just,
The Russian soldiers were?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then calling home and like there's intercepted calls about like this one guy. He's like calling his wife and he's like, yeah, I stole a nice mink coat for you. Like, and she's like, fuck yeah, like get them. Da, da, da. Like it was disgusting, just freaking disgusting.
This is, talking about propaganda. This is what it leads to, is indoctrinated people who are so narrow-minded, closed-minded, and have this one point of view and perspective, and they're willing to kill and pillage for it. It's really fascinating that this is happening in the world right now.
It's absolutely wild. And some of them I feel bad for, because it's like, if you don't want to go and you have, like, you're just going to die for no cause at all. And that's why I feel like in Ukraine, you see so many people just like nobody wants to be there, but like they're going because they're like I have something to fight for. Like, honestly, if I was in Ukraine right now, like I would fully learn, like even here, like I want to learn how to use guns, how to shoot, because like I will shoot a motherfucker if I'm there and like you come on my territory, like I will not hesitate. But like, yeah, so being there, like for people there, it's like I'm fighting for something. And when you fight for something, you have like the why behind, you have the, you're protecting your own territory, your own livelihood, your own nation. Like that's why you have people, rallying up and like they're coming back. Like so there were people that left at the beginning of the conflict and they like voluntarily came back and enlisted to go fight. And you have all the Russians like fleeing because they're like, I'm not going for this stupid shit.
Yeah, where's it at now? I haven't really heard much about it.
No idea. I just know it's still going on, and I can't like keep.
You were still playing when this all started.
Yeah.
Talk about like the connection of when you first found out that the conflict was really getting intensifying, and then the connection with your parents and what that felt like seeing the war at their front door.
Yeah. It was really horrible. So a few weeks or maybe a month before the war started, we actually went to Ukraine. I was in Belgium playing on the Belgian team, and we had a Euro Cup game against the Ukrainian team. So we traveled there, and you can feel the tension. Like the air has like heaviness to it. You could tell everyone is kind of like on alert. It was such a weird feeling. And we knew that like things are weird in Ukraine. So my team, we were like, is it safe to go? Like, we're not really sure.
Is this in the stadium with the fans?
Yeah.
Or was it like everywhere? Like even driving in the thing? Could
everywhere.
You feel the tension in the collective atmosphere?
Everywhere. Like one of our flights got canceled. Like one of the internal flights got canceled. And we were like, this is a bad sign. You know, and like even there, like you can tell it was weird. And then when there was like, we have a February break, which is like national team break. So it was like at the beginning of February, and a lot of girls and guys that were playing in Ukraine, they didn't come back. They were like, you know, our people back home in the like the Americans, like people in the States are saying like, don't go back. This is dangerous. And I had a few people call me and they were like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, should they go? And I was like, no, don't go. If I was like, we went and it felt weird. This is totally different vibe from all the other things that were happening. So I didn't know like it was going to be an actual war. And then when it started, it was in the morning that I woke up and like I had a ton of messages and everybody's like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, because nobody said why they were sorry. So I go online and I was just like, okay, I don't know what's happening. And then I read that like Russia launched attacks. And I was like, well, this is not good. And when I FaceTimed my family, my mom and dad, who are in Ukraine, and my sister who lives in the States, we were all on FaceTime and we're talking to them, and it's like in the background, just like loud explosions. And
in
like
the actual FaceTime call with them.
Wow. You can hear it like, so just like it was happening in their room, you know?
What was that like? What was it? What were they like jumping? Were they scared? Were they frightened? What was that experience like?
My dad he just looks concerned at all times. Doesn't matter what's happening. So he just like looks concerned.
The resting concern face.
Yes. And then my mom, looking back now, I think that was her way of coping with it through like humor. And she would be like, no, it's okay. Like, oh, you know, they're just like banging around or like saying stuff like that. And me and my sister, I'm like, dude, like, the blood drained from my entire body. Like, what are you talking about? So we were freaking out. I was so mad. I yelled at her and hung up on her. I was like, you need to get out. What are you doing? And they had a flight to the States the next week to go visit my sister. Needless to say, they couldn't leave. And my dad is still there, still can't leave. My mom has gone, you know, back and forth because she couldn't get out.
Why is that? Why can't you leave?
So during the wartime, men between 18 and 60 have to stay and serve. Only if you have 3 children, you can leave. Or if you like on medical, you know, something like you don't have an arm.
Him as an able man at 59, I think you said.
50, he's going to be 64.
So once he turns 60, he can leave?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have to wait.
And has he been drafted or anything? Is that how it works? Or?
Well, so he's not like, you know, the first choice. At the beginning, they let him and his friends, they were kind of like, no, like you're fine because he's 6, I don't know, 7, 8, like he's tall. And they didn't even have clothes for him. So they were like, we can't even draft, like we don't have anything to put you in. And then lately they drafted his friend and we were like, well, what happened? Like, what are they going to do? And they were like, oh, don't worry. They said, don't worry, Americans sent us all the clothes. My dad was like, fuck.
Fucking America.
Right, what the? We didn't ask for this.
6, 8 people clothes. You send us something. Why would you send us
something
that?
Valid, something more valid. But no, I mean, it was, yeah. And so now he's like, I'm not leaving the house. Because like they literally like picking people off the street. Like,
really? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So he's just, is he living in fear of that? Like just stuck inside? Like I don't want to leave because they're just going to grab me?
My dad doesn't leave the house anyway. He's on the computer with his cat. So like, honestly, I don't think much changed for him.
Yeah.
Like, except like, obviously, like we're not there. I mean, I'm downplaying it for sure. But he's, you know, a very indoors dude. So he's been, sitting there. But my mom left, I think it was day 17 of the war. So it was like March something. Finally, she was like, oh, I think I'm scared. And my dad was like, you need to get out. Like, so he sent her away and she had to like take a 2-hour bus to a different city. Then it just looked like, honestly, like images that you see from Holocaust that like they're just putting people on the trains and taking them to concentration camps. That's what it looked like.
Wow.
Chaos, complete
Is
chaos.
this when you saw this in what, like a
I saw
FaceTime
them
with her? Or
no, like
pictures
she sent you
Sent
pictures.
you pictures, okay.
And so she had to take a train to like, western part of Ukraine. And then from there, I think they took a bus or something to Poland. And I'm looking at her location. So like her, I'm tracking her phone and they're going, so from where she was in Lviv, you literally just need to go west and you are like in Warsaw or something like that. But they started going north and north is Belarus. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody hijacked the bus. They're
What's in
taking them to
Belarus?
Belarus. More Russians.
It's closer to the Russian border, is that?
Yeah, so they're kind of like, they're directly north of Ukraine, and they're like the Russian allies. Like they were shooting from there as well. The
okay, so do you see the bus take a turn towards there? You're like, what the fuck?
Oh my God, I'm like, she's getting taken. This is it. I mean, I was freaking out for so many hours. And like, she doesn't really have good connection, so she can't really explain. Finally, like she connected, she was like, no, it was just a super long line. It takes hours to get through that because that's the main border. So they took us around. And I was like, you need to let me know. So then she did that. And then I bought her a ticket from somewhere in Poland and she flew to Belgium and then whatever.
What was that like when you saw that go up? Like for that few hours where you weren't in contact with her?
Listen, I already thought I lost my soul when those explosions happened in the back. But I mean, I was like, dude, like my mom is gone. Like it was horror. Like the way, I don't know, like it just like such a existential, like I just felt like nothing else I've ever been through life mattered. Like in that moment,
that's the only thing. And everything else is just a story that's irrelevant.
I think the explosions is what was the main kind of like the core memory I have of like, okay, what is fear? That's fear. Because I didn't know, like, are they gonna, because they're shooting like all the residential buildings. I'm like, well, are they gonna just an explosive gonna land on their building? Like you can't hide anywhere.
And so you're living with this fear pretty much until your mom leaves?
Yeah, I mean, like my dad is still there. My grandma is still there. My cousin and one of my friends had like complete psychotic breakdowns on their way out. People are like going completely gray. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff, and
it's like stuff you don't even think about, what the effects and the ripples that like war has on the psyches of. And I think
it's just like, it's been so long for all of us. Like we've never seen this kind of stuff. You see it on TV and I realized that like, you hear about stuff in like in the Middle East all the time, even like Latin America. I mean, right here in Mexico.
There and it's
like,
so
it's just like, it's on the news. It's on TV. You don't get to experience it. You just like, how they always say like to learn information, you need to like engage more senses. So like if you just see something, it's like, it's one thing. If you hear, it's like, all right. But then when you add like a visual or like your
entire nervous system.
Like, you get to smell it, you get to hear it. The more senses I engage, the more intense the experience. And I feel like being in, experiencing this, I was like, oh shit, like war is like, this is real. Like, and I'm not even there. Like, so I'm sure I'm still removed, several steps from what's actually happening.
How has that experience changed you? What have you learned? Because going through something like that, like you say, once you have an experience of like such a focus of like, oh, life and death, everything else that I think is important, like my athletic career, making money, all that like kind of goes out the window to like, holy cow. And definitely in this country, like I don't wake up in the morning ever confronting my death in a really real way like that.
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing was definitely like, like what you thought was bad or what you thought was your kind of like, not peak, maybe like the lowest experience of all, like the hardest, like you found a new floor. Like we just went several levels below, and I was like, oh man, like, so I think it expanded like the range of emotions and experiences and feelings.
What were some of those feelings that you were experiencing?
I don't even know the name for these things. Like the dread of like losing it's kind of like floor from underneath me, you just like you floating. I'm like, I no longer have a home. Like
a trap door releasing and you're floating in an abyss of nothingness.
And you just don't know where
despair.
you're going to land. You're like, it's been a year and I haven't landed anywhere, because you're like, well, am I going to have parents tomorrow? Or am I not? And it's an ongoing, every day it's like, is the house still standing? Are we still okay? And it doesn't go away really. So I mean, maybe like when it's over, it will go one way or another, but like while it's ongoing.
So you're still free floating in that.
I'm
despair.
still, yeah. And because I'm going through my transition also, that I'm like unsettled.
That's heavy.
And I've always had like, so I left home, when I was 14, and I didn't go back a lot or often, and I wasn't as connected, but I always knew that like I always have home. I always have, like, no matter what happens, I can always go back to Ukraine, regroup or whatever I needed to do. And like, that is always a home, regardless of how often I go there. And now it's like, that just doesn't exist. And it's like, you're by yourself. It's you. Like, yeah, I have friends. I have amazing people in my life that will help me. But it's like, that's what like birthed you, produced you. That's your parents. That's your, like, that's quote unquote, like your people. Like you came from, like there's something about like coming from there that's like ties you,
It's an anchor point.
Yeah.
And being
it's
untethered is...
Yeah, it feels wild. So all of that was definitely it. And then I think I became aware of how important our actions and our voices when it comes to politics, when it comes to like social responsibilities, even something like a Memorial Day or like honoring the troops. Like, you always like, oh, good job, like clap. And I'm like, no, you sacrifice, like you put your life in danger. You lost friends. You've seen death. Like
you have a different respect for that.
Yeah, we don't understand what they've been through because like reading it in books, like you just don't get that. And I think just the importance of like, voting and making your voice heard and speaking up on certain issues. I'm like, I used to be very like, I'm not into politics. I travel too much. Like I know a little bit about like French politics, Ukrainian, American, like I'm all over the place. So I'm like, I don't know a lot about any one of them. I just like surface level all of them. And I'm like, oh, no. This is like important because then, you have idiots just taking over and like no one speaks out. Like,
so what's present for you now? What, because you do have a pretty broad understanding of the geopolitical environment, especially being so connected to Ukraine. What is on your heart right now? What's present for you as far as something to speak up on?
Yeah. Man, I don't know what to like do about it, I guess, but I'm just looking at more and more people standing up and like speaking out against their government. And whether it's like a rally, I've been like to whole bunch of random rallies. Like I went to the one in Houston they had for Iran after oh my God, Amina, what is her name, was killed. And I was like, I don't need to be Iranian to go there. Like you're speaking out against like injustice, against this dictators, like
oppression of women is a big thing there, right?
It's not their problem. It's all of our problem. Today it's Iran. Tomorrow it's you. What are you going to do? And you need those different groups. Like we're not divided in this. Everybody needs, respect, freedom, some kind of opportunities and like not this freaking imprisonment and war. And
did this passion come from the experience with Ukraine that like really lit it up within you?
Yeah, I was like, oh crap, like it's not about Ukraine. Like other people are getting affected. So now the more I hear about, other places, I'm like, okay, like even if you do it in a small way, like go join the rally, like just go stand with the people. Like you don't have to, I was standing there and they're chanting stuff in Farsi and like other languages. And I'm like, yeah, like I don't understand, but I'm like, I'm there to support you. And they ended up being like, I come and there's this man with this like huge pole with like Iranian flag and next to him a dude with a Ukrainian flag. And they were like, it says something like death to dictators or something like that. And I was like, oh, maybe like, I don't know why they're there. I was like, Ukrainians, like you'll find us everywhere with the waving the flag.
Yeah.
And one of my Iranian friends came and she was like, oh, let's go introduce ourselves, whatever. And like, no, they were just two dudes from Iran. And they were like, we're just against dictatorship. We're against, all this stupid crap. Like we want freedom. And so he was like, yeah, so we had like Ukrainian flag. And I was like, that's super dope.
Yeah. Really comes down to freedom and oppression, huh?
Right, yeah.
I mean, what do you think is going to happen with the world? I mean, I feel like it's shifting so fast and there's a lot of things happening pretty rapidly. Yeah. I mean, are you staying up to date with anything currently moving through?
No. I feel like I try to do whatever, like whatever I can, join whatever I can, like vote on anything here because I'm not an American citizen yet. So I'm like
waiting on that.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't matter. Like I can't do anything about it. But like if I can join some kind of social thing, like I do. And for the most part, once again, because I can't really do things. I mean, I try to support groups and like share on my Instagram, whatever, like however you can support things or like just spread like the word. And like, I don't hesitate to talk about my experience or Ukraine and just like let people know like how freaking real it is.
Yeah.
And like, this is not people out there. This is a lot of people among us. Like I'm here, like I've lived most of my life in United States. And like, I have friends, like once you tell a friend and they're like, oh crap, it's not the Ukrainian, it's Val. Like that's my friend who this is happening to. Yeah. And, and I'm sure like my teammates felt it last year too when, all this stuff happened and I had to like, I skipped the game because I was like, I can't, like, I don't fucking care about basketball. Like, what is this? Like, what is basketball? Like my house is getting bombed, like my hometown. And, but one of the days I found out that my dad couldn't leave, that he had to stay there because he's under 60. And I was just like, we were in the weight room. I remember we were like lifting and I was like, I was like, Dad, like you need to get on the plane. Like we'll buy you a ticket. Like get out. Like, I don't care how, like you need to freaking walk, get out of there. And that's when they were like, yeah, man, between 18 and 60 can't leave. And I just like broke down. I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to lose my dad. That was horrible. And all the girls, they were just like, hurry up. And like, our way to deal with it. We're like, food. So we leave the weight room and we had shooting afterwards. And they, I guess, called the coach and told him. So everybody was just like, gather your shit, let's go. So we went to the gym. They got like, coffee, croissants. And like my coach was just like hugged and everybody just sat there. And
how was that process? Take me through that. Was it, so you were just having an emotional, like all this emotion just
bawling. I was just like, what is going to happen? Like first, both of my parents are, in danger and they're just like, I'm hearing this explosion. It's wild. And at that time I was keeping up with all the Telegram channel and everything. So I'm watching there was like a little shootout, a little big. It was a shootout between two tanks. They were just like in the middle of the main road, just like turning, spinning around and just like shooting shit up. Wild. And I was like, this is like, what is this?
This is in your parents' hometown?
Yeah.
Or your hometown where you're from? Wow.
Just in the central street. And so when that happened, I was just like, I'm going to lose my dad. Like, when am I going to see him?
So how does your team showed up and support you? They just said, hey, Val, like they wanted to support you. So they got some croissants.
Well,
and they sat with
we
you
just went to the gym. They canceled the practice, obviously. And we just sat there and we were just like, try to talk, joke, like kind of
was it taking your mind off of it or was it holding space for what you're actually moving through? I'm curious of how they supported you in that process.
Yeah, no, I think it was kind of like holding space. They were trying to figure out what, like, no one knows.
Yeah, no trying to make you feel better.
Yeah, so they were just like, hey, whatever we need to like, cheer you up. And then after that, they would just bring food to my house. Like I didn't go, to practice. I missed some games or a game. They would bring like food to my house and come visit, come hang out. Sometimes and like
just a deep grieving process.
Just kind of let me do my thing because like what can you do?
Really, yeah, and just feel that. How long did that process unfold? It seems like you're still like on the outer edges of that same process, but the intensity of it. How long did that last?
Yeah,
and what helped you move through it?
Oof. First, I feel like I needed to get the season over with. We had like big games coming up after that. And I remember we played against like the top team. And I just remember sitting there and being like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care about basketball. Like, how can I care? Like when you play, you're on a team, like the coach is like, oh, this is the most important. We must win. We must. And I was like, no, you know what we must do? Like, not fucking die. Like, not have my whole country be like wiped off. Like, that's what matters to me. So like, I'm sorry if this is a very first world problem. I don't care. So like, it was very hard for me to play.
Your perspective just got flipped.
Yeah, it was. And I wanted, like, I love that team. That was like one of my favorite teams to play for, one of my favorite coaches. So I wanted to give it my all. And I did as much as I had, but I knew that like what I had was just it was not the same. It was not on the same level as before.
Did this experience lead to your retirement or have a big impact on it?
No, I decided to retire that January, like a month before, maybe.
Before this happened.
Before all of this happened.
And this was going to be your final season?
Yeah, and I was kind of like, well, I was thinking about maybe playing like the summer or something else. And then I was just like, I couldn't get my mental to the same level of like caring about basketball. So I was like, I can't go. Like, I'm not going to care. Like, I'm already like ready to transition out. But now with this war, like, I have more like existential problems that like it's really hard to give my all to a sport because like, you know, you're playing, I mean, it's demanding like psychologically, like in every way, your body, like you already sometimes like feeling like you're drowning. And overseas, like we don't have resources with like help, like psychologists, whatever. Like a lot of our coaches are, you know, friend of the president that coached the whatever 8-year-olds and just worked his way up. And like a lot of them are not well versed in like psychology and motivation,
health,
like none of that. So
sadly, not a lot of people are in any organization.
Yeah,
really.
I feel like just people are held a little more accountable in the States or like more, especially like professional leagues. Like you have more resources, money.
Yeah.
There,
this is everybody's looking out for themselves.
You're like, you broke your foot and they're like, well, but can you finish the game? Like, we'll look at you in like in 2 weeks, but like you're practicing in the meantime.
It costs money to get an MRI.
Yeah,
I
like,
think it's just a bruise.
Are you just like, yeah, like let me move it? Like what the heck? So stuff like that. I was just like,
how much does women basketball players get paid?
So super wide range. I have heard of people. So the locals, for example, when they sign them young, kind of like 18 and up, they could make as little as $500 a month. They'll make that for years. Like if they can lock them into the contract of like some kind of like $1,000, $2,000, like they will do that
for like 5 years. So that even when they become good,
18 or 16, they will do that for like 3 to 5 years, and like that's really shitty, like agent job to like.
Yeah, but they're so young that they take advantage of the ignorance.
Exactly. Yeah, so you can go as low as that, and even some girls that come from the States. I've known people that have played for $500 a month. I think something more normal is between $50,000 and $100,000.
$100,000 a year?
That's like, yeah.
Okay. And then what are the top players getting paid in Europe?
There is like, how many of them? I don't know, 20. Like, so it's a lot of, most of the WNBA girls and like the top few from each country, like from their national teams, they might get in like 200,000. Like obviously the teams that play in the Russian teams, they were paying like close to $1 million to like few, you know, like Brittany Griner, Diana Taurasi. Like, I mean, they're making like,
they're the top dogs
but that's
entire
like,
sport.
Yeah. I mean, they're making more than entire team's budget in other countries. So that's like super duper outlier. But I think like an average good person can expect between 50, 100. And then like in other countries other than Russia, like someone good, like between 1 and 200. And then like you have like very few, you know, higher.
Do you mind sharing how much you made? What was your kind of?
I was on average probably 50.
Yeah.
But also I played in France where like we had to we had to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what I was making, like they taxed the shit out of you.
Did you have to pay taxes in every country you played?
No. So only in France were we like valid, like legit workers. Mm-hmm. So we got, you know, health insurance. I still have like my health, whatever card that you can get like discounted health services for. We pay taxes. They pay taxes for us. So like we should have retirement after. I don't know.
Nice.
Things like that. So it was more official. So when COVID hit, for example, I got all my money because I was getting paid until like through July, I think. And we had the lockdown beginning of March. So I got all my money. Like they gave me the apartment and the car to, you know, while I was there. Other countries, once it locked down, it was like, it's been
you're
nice.
On your own?
It's really? Been nice. You know, do whatever you want.
And how long did you spend most of your career in France?
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah, 9 seasons was in
France. Did you ever become like a known thing?
People around France know me. Like,
you're a pretty big deal.
I'm big deal. That's weird. No, not a big deal.
Come on, I'm just curious.
People know me in France. Like I've played there for a long time.
So how often, like if you're walking down the street in France, someone will be like, how often do you get recognized?
Okay, like it's not the whole France because it's a very small market for like basketball fans. Like in our city, I played on one team for 4 years. So like I'm, you know, known there. Like people would stop like in grocery stores. Like one time it was cool. They have like our team little magazine. It was like in the grocery store, like at the checkout line, like literally like sitting there. And like one time we came and I was like we rotate who's on the cover, and I was there, and I was like, hey guys, look. Like, and like sometimes they'll have posters throughout the city of us, but like the fans, like they know they'll come up and, you know, talk to you, but like I didn't go outside a lot. And I'm also like, I don't engage on Instagram, like on social media.
Yeah.
I'm not like yes, fans, likes, So I
always had resistance to that, huh?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I mean, you're 6'4" too, so just walking on the street, you obviously garner attention.
Yeah, and I just was like, what am I using social media for? And it was like, okay, I have a lot of friends all over the world, and it's hard to like, you know, have everybody's phone number. I don't want to lose touch. And most people have Instagram, so I'm like, okay, that's my way to keep up with people who live God knows where. I'm not there for fans, likes, promotions.
And that's the beautiful thing of social media, like what its purpose was for that. And then it turned into this whole, I need to get as much followers as possible and attention.
To each his own, and that's fine. I don't add I have a few fans that like, they're kind of like my ride or dies. I'm like, man, you've been there for a long time.
They shoot you a DM on Instagram, so we're still here.
You know what? I'm like, yeah, come on in. You can follow me. So there's like 5 of them.
Do you have a private account? Is that you have to like,
my account is
approve?
private.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm like, what? Like, I don't know you. Like, what are you following me for? Like, I post very personal, stupid things that like, I'm like, I don't need others to like have an opinion about something. And especially, you know, people that don't know you. Like, I joke a lot. I put outrageous stuff. I like videos of kids falling and like doing stupid stuff. You know, like, and I'll
like the kids getting hurt stuff.
Like, you know, I mean, they're fine, but like, I'll post some stuff that's not like, I don't want anyone's opinion on it. I don't care.
You don't want
people
all the
that
backlash,
know me,
the political correctness.
Yeah,
people
who know me, they understand like how I'm coming at it. Like, they know me, so it's like I don't have to explain myself. Whereas someone that doesn't, like,
they take it personal.
I don't need your comments.
The social justice warriors.
I so don't care about this.
Yeah.
And I will stand behind.
Because honestly, none of this fucking matters because people are dying every day.
Yeah. Also that, like, what are we arguing about? I'm like, go do something more important. Like, please. I don't know. So, yeah.
I feel that. So you retired 11 months ago. What's the process been like the last 11 months of like really, you did some interviews. You obviously have your head on right. Like you understand that this is a process. The transition is going to bring up some challenges that maybe you can't really prepare for. You try to prepare for it by interviewing some of your friends. Like, what's this going to be like? What can I expect? How have you moved through it being so fresh for you over the last year? And we'll get into kind of figuring out what to do next.
Well, so I knew that going into retirement, I was like, I'm going to need help. I'm going to need like mental support because of all the stuff that I've picked up. And I read somewhere, I think it was Gabor Mate, like he's a psychologist. Mm-hmm. He does a lot of trauma stuff. He talked about it. He's like, you know, trauma happens when you are put in a certain situation and you need to adapt. So it's kind of like, you know, you were in the summer, all of a sudden it's winter. Winter, it's cold. You need a winter coat to help you in this situation. So in this, and for me, that was basketball, right? Like I'm not naturally very like aggressive, competitive, or like that's not, you know, me. But like for me to exist, to thrive in those situations, like I kind of had to become like a bit of a different person. So he's like, okay, winter comes, you adapt. So you put on the coat. So I'm like, I'm becoming this other person. I'm more hard. I'm more, you know, I'm not as like intuitive. I'm like, okay, I need more logic. I need more, like, it changed me, you know? And then he's like, so then when you're out of that situation, it's summer again, but you keep wearing the winter coat, it's no longer helping you. Now it's hindering. Now it's, you know, you have problems because you didn't adapt to like the new situation. Yeah.
Sweating. And why do I still have this coat on?
Yeah. And you keep carrying this crap that you needed, but like you didn't switch. You didn't get out of it. So it felt kind of the same in the sense that I picked up all of these, you know, like hardened traits.
What are some of the traits that
I'm very like, I have to do everything on my own. I can't depend on anyone. And I'm like, I'm going to get through it. And it's kind of like this, like going through the wall thing of like, I won't ask for help some of the times. I'm not as like compassionate to other people because I've had to just suck it up and do it. Like you leave home at 14, you don't speak the language, you move in with the family that eventually like kicks you out and leaves all your shit on those, you know, doorstep of the school. Like
So you look at other people, you're like, life's not that, your life's not that hard. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, and I'm like, you just do the next best thing. Like, I don't have time for all this feely stuff. So I worked with a life coach after I retired, and, we kind of talked about this. And he asked me one day, he was like, what's the one thing you learned the most or the best from basketball? And I remember like surprised myself because the answer came out so fast, and it was like to shove down my feelings. Like, you don't have time. There's no place for how are you feeling today? Are you away from your family, friends? You can never maintain a normal relationship. You're constantly moving. Like, your coaches are just, oh my God, like, I have no respect for some of them because I'm like, I know more than you do. Like, you've never even played. You've coached.
I had that same thing too.
Oh God. But it's like they coach, these like village little teams, and then somehow they get promoted and you're playing on a high level. And I'm like, I didn't suffer through all this to play for you. Like, one of my coaches couldn't explain how to play zone defense. We asked him, we were like, no, but we all play. Everybody plays it different. Like, there are rules to moving in zone. Like, so when the ball goes here, who goes? And he's like, I don't understand. I've never had to explain this to anyone. And we were like, yeah, we could tell. Explain it to us. Never explained it.
Wow.
But he would yell at us for like not being in the right zone. But we were like, we don't know who
So you just
goes.
had no respect for him?
No. And I was like, there's no way, And he like came to me with some kind of stats, and he was like, well, you play in this league, like in Spanish league, you play bad. In Euro Cup, you play good. And I was like, yeah, in Euro Cup, one of the Americans has to sit out and I play 30 minutes instead of 20. Like, like there's also two completely different leagues. Like, I'm like, if you don't understand the difference between the Spanish league and the Euro Cup, like, it's totally different basketball. Each country has kind of like a different version of basketball.
Sure.
And I'm like, if you just open your eyes, you could tell that like I fit better in this more traditional, you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus Spain, like everybody's same size, same height, just like runs around. And I'm like, I'm a big bitch.
And so was the biggest thing with this specific coach his inability to be open and curious and actually listen to your input and your advice and feedback?
Yeah, I think so. He never really took our feedback well, and he just had this like, I think he didn't know. He didn't.
Because he didn't know, he wanted to act like he knew.
Yeah,
so it was
like a forceful, like, no, you just listen to me.
Insecurities.
Yeah, because like he couldn't explain anything. And I was just like, how, you can see through that. Like after a while, especially when you're older, you could see through all that crap.
Especially as a player.
Like, I'm like, no way.
I'm curious because naturally women are more emotional, right? And at least more connected to their emotions. I know there's this systemic collective, like what you're talking about of emotions have really not been honored in our society and culture. But I'm curious with like a women's sport, is there room, or you're saying there isn't connection to emotions still? It's still a very masculine kind of energy and that unhealthy way of like stuffing your emotions down to go compete.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, and you have, I think now the younger players, like you see them just being more like showy and more aggressive and more like, I don't know, they buy into this hype of like, kind of like looking down on the opponent versus being like, I love this, I'm playing for fun. Like, you get like the crowd hype, you get yourself hype. It's more turned towards now like, no, I'm going to put you down instead of like, the excitement, the emotion of sport being like you doing something great and like you being excited. I'm noticing some of it is being like, well, I get my energy from putting down, from like talking back, from like
is this just in
aggressive
the
gestures,
women's basketball arena you're referring to? Or
I think I observe more women's basketball. Like I know it more from inside and out. So
but that's your perspective, is that in women's basketball there's more of that than there used to be? I feel like
it's shifting now.
Why do you think that is?
I think like the basketball is changing. Like
it's gotta be social media,
the culture of it. Yeah, I think it's like the influence of all of the, you want the views, you have the persona and da-da-da.
It's about the me instead of the team.
I hate it. Yeah. It's not me. It's not how I play. I mean, whatever gets you through, I guess. But yeah, there's, like I said, a lot of coaches are also not well, like educated in that. I have had few great coaches who would be like, okay, what's up? Like, let's talk. And,
like emotionally intelligent enough to be
connect.
Like, you're acting different because of this, what's going on? I
had one coach and like, he knew I played for him for 4 years. And he was like, like, I know I can't yell at you. Like, I know if I tell you to do something and I explain why and kind of like support you, like I will go all in. Like, I'll be like, yes, let's go. Like, I'm more like, okay, tell me why I'm doing. Like, what do you want from me? Why am I doing this? And then I'll give my all. Like, that's my job.
Yeah, let me show up for you. Tell me how. Create the expectations.
But when you're just like screaming or like, I don't care, this is your job. I'm like, no, I didn't come here for you.
I'm the same way.
I'm sorry, but you're $50,000.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Like I can make way more like working a regular job. Like I love doing this. I enjoy the lifestyle and like.
And it's so fascinating. I had a similar experience in the NFL, which is one of the top sports organizations in the world. And it's still as the same dynamics is so fascinating with a coach that didn't actually, like, I'm the player. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of experience. And some of these coaches maybe played college football and they've been in the coaching environment for a while. But there's nothing like, if you're telling me how a technique is going to work and it's not working for me and I'm getting the job done and I'm sharing with you like how this is done, then if you're not open to listening to my feedback and actually working with me, like I had really good coaches where it was like, we call them players coaches. Like he played a long time and he's like, hey Joe, what's working for you? What's your plan? How do you attack this guy? What's your game plan pretty much? Instead of telling me like, hey, this is what you should do. This is what you're doing wrong. And when that happened, I just would get so much resistance and be like, fuck off.
No, absolutely. I'm like, you're not listening. You don't understand. You've never played. You're not getting that like, I can't play the same way against everybody. Also like the way I'll defend is different from the way you'll defend. And like, you need to like emphasize the person's strength and figure out, okay, well, like if she's great at defending this way, like freaking do it, get the job done in your way. Like why, I don't understand, why do I have to do it your way when the difference is not like, it gets the job done, but like in one, I'm struggling and I'm constantly like,
trying to do it the way you need me to do it so I don't get yelled at. So that's always on my mind instead of playing freely.
Yeah, I'm slower. I can't get in like the flow of things. My attitude sucks. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like that's, I don't know. And that's where you just lose respect for, and I think like that was another thing. The older I got, the more I like see and understand, the less patience I had for all
the you can see right through like, fuck, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm like, you can fool the other ones. I'm not here for this. And I'm like, I will speak
Did that ever get you in trouble with the teams or coaches?
Ooh, 1 year. I don't mind speaking up. And one year in France, it got really bad. My coach was married and ended up sleeping with the player.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's inappropriate.
That's
the most inappropriate.
Quite normal.
Is it?
Yeah. And so I was there for 2 years. And the first year it was great. We went we were top 4. We, went far, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Great team. The next year he changes one person. He brings in the girlfriend and one of the players leaves. The rest of the team, same. We end up finishing I'm not sure. We didn't even go to playoffs. I think it was like 9th or something. And he, I think in his stress and in his, affair, kind of was like taking it out on us. And I'm like, that's not how this works. Like that's your own problem you need to, deal with. So he would try to yell at me. He benched me. And I'm like, okay, one of your best players. Do what feels best for you. And like, I remember one day he tried to punish us, me and this other American girl. She was off the chain. She would just talk crazy to him. But he would made us run suicides after. And he was like, you have 30 seconds. And we would just jog. And we would just jog next to each other. But like, how long do you think he was going to keep this up? I don't know. And we would just talk straight. He'd be like, I could be here all night. And my teammate was like, yeah, we know you don't want to go back to your wife. And I mean, we were just talking crazy. At that point, I was like, I don't want to be here. And, so I would just say whatever. Because I was like, fire me. Because if they fire you, they have to pay you for a few months. Because in France, you can't just fire someone. So my agent was like, I mean, just make sure you do the job, but be difficult. And that was one of the, and they would not freaking fire me.
Wow. So how long did that go on for? A few months?
We found out at the beginning of the season-ish, and it was just rocky, the entire season. And then I think we had a meeting with the coach and the girl towards the end. Maybe
the whole team did?
The whole team in the locker room before practice.
Did everybody know that this was happening during the season?
They found out. I didn't say how, but they found out. There was evidence, receipts for all the things. And and it all started to make sense how he knew what we were doing on our off days, how we were moving, and who had said what.
Damn.
Yeah, it was trash.
What was that experience like when the team meeting was called and they said this? Like,
I was sitting back. I was like,
like get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, who's gonna say what? Because like it wasn't I was the last one to know because like the girl was my friend and my roommate. And I didn't know this whole time.
You were the roommate of the girl that was doing this and you didn't know?
Yeah, on the road trip, like when we would go on the road, that was my roommate.
Was there any red flags that popped up in retrospect that was she like leaving and doing stuff during the travels, or was it?
Not really, not that. And I'm pretty like, do you want to go somewhere? Go. Like I'm not suspicious at all. Maybe a little too, relaxed. But but we found out and they called them in and they were like, we know. And she was like, I think she was like, I'm sorry, guys, like, apologize. And he was like, what? No. We were like, she already confessed. Like it's fine.
So take me through this. So she confessed to what happened?
We were in the locker room and the girls, whoever the ringleaders, they were like, hey, we want to meet with you. And this was before practice. And they were like, we know
that you're sleeping with Coach.
We know you're sleeping with Coach. We found out, this is like really shitty because you're telling him all this stuff. Like we don't care about that you're having sex
with them, but you're telling them all the shit behind her back.
Yeah. And that's what we were mad about. And then it made sense that he was so aggressive towards all of us all of a sudden. Like we all resigned because we had such a great time the first season. And all of a sudden I'm like, we're losing. We can't get along. He's benching me. Like we're running these stupid suicides.
So everything
for no reason.
Shifted.
And we were like, oh. So then she was like, kind of head down, like, guys, I'm sorry. And then he walks in and, same. They were like, we know what's happening. This is really shitty. Da da da.
He walked into this. He just walked.
They
said, "Come on in." Before the practice, same practice.
We have a meeting.
So it's like a players' meeting.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, we want to talk to you, Coach.
Yeah, and he comes in and we're like, we know that you two are sleeping together. We found out, and this, like, it all makes sense. So we just basically were
What's
like,
the look on his face when you guys call him out?
What? And he was like friends with some of the girls on the team. They were like actually like friends outside of that. Nobody like knew.
And so what did he deny?
Oh, he denied it the whole time. I'm pretty sure he didn't confess. So we were just like, we know.
Like she just told us. Was she there
confessed, too? Yeah, she was there too. She confessed and we have evidence. And I mean, at that point, like it doesn't matter how we found out. Like if we have this information, like that we know, it's true. So
then finally was he like, okay. When did he own it?
I don't know that he like ever did. We did cancel the practice, thank God. We went home. And then because nobody cared anymore, we ended up freaking beating the number.
Crushing everyone the rest of the season.
So this was so stupid. So we ended up finishing 9th. Only 8 teams go to playoffs. So I remember it was April 15th. So we finished April 15th. But we played this, what is this called? French Cup game. So it's like all the teams, no matter of the ranking, in every league, division, you play among each other and like you play for the French Cup title. Mm-hmm. We end up beating the number 1 team in the overtime. And I like end up having 24 points, like buzzer beaters. Like I'm turning around, I'm shooting just like out of my ass and everything is going in. And one of my teammates, she also like kind of like helper player, like shoots a buzzer beater. And we were just like, what the The game ends, no one celebrates. Because the championship game was not for another month. We had to stay there in this sucky situation for no games, not one game, April 15th to May 15th. Not one game. And we were there. We're like, I cannot believe I have to be here for so long.
You guys didn't realize that when you won the game? Or were you guys
we weren't trying to win or like, we were just like, we're playing.
And then you guys hit a buzzer beater and you're like, wait, no, it's going in. Yes. You're like, fuck.
And it was the overtime one. And we just walked off. Yeah, we walked off the court. I mean, like, I can't like sabotage a game. Like,
yeah. It's like there's an ethical thing.
Yeah,
there.
I can't do it. So we still played our game, but we were just like, fuck. Everybody was walking off the.
So you said you had to stay there for a month because you guys were going to play in the championship game, or you guys just had to wait?
So yeah, the final of this French Cup, we had to wait for the men's league because all of the men, the women, and the amateur, whatever, all the leagues, they play in the same arena on the same day. It's like a super big deal. And we had to wait for a month for that. It was horrible. And then we got like.
What did you guys do for the month?
Wiped out by 20 points.
Yeah.
Hung out. I mean, the weather was nice.
Was it awkward with the team? So tell me about what happened with the coach and the player, and like how did that that experience like resolve itself?
I don't think it did. They kept like she was there for years.
They
And
kept for years, and they kept doing it.
They kept doing it. He would travel to the like when she was in the States. He was travel to the States and like say he's going to basketball clinics. And I don't know if his wife found. Like honestly, I took myself out of it.
Yeah.
The next year, I went to a different team with some of those same teammates, and I was like, hey, if something happens on this team, I don't want to know. I don't want any drama.
Wow.
Turns out.
It's like so juicy. I want to know.
It is. No, but turns out the next season, I'm roommates with a girl that used to date the coach. They had just broke up. And the friend that I moved from this team to the next, she started dating the coach. And they're still like together or whatever. They have a kid. And so all of that was happening at the same time. And I was just like,
have you ever dated a coach?
No.
Is this just a normal thing in women's basketball?
I don't know. Like, there's just so much better options. I think it's like you spend so much time together.
Yeah.
And the second coach, like he's a good looking guy. But, you spend a lot of time together. You have like meetings, you travel together. You just get to know each other. And maybe they just, it's like an exposure thing.
Yeah.
Like I got used to you. So I like, I don't know. I could never.
It's interesting. Like you think about like human nature and like sexual energy and like just wanting to explore that, but it's such a taboo thing in our society.
And honestly, it's maybe controversial opinion, but like I think like half the girls that do date other girls while like we're overseas, like any sport, it's honestly because of that. It's exposure. You know so much, like as teammates, period. You just know so much about each other. As women, we bond even more. And then it's like, well, we're together. Like I know you inside and out. And it just, so many girls that I know that like they'll go overseas, they'll have girlfriends, whatever.
Really? So a lot of teammates are dating each other?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Like teammates among like in between teams, whatever. It's like, it's a whole web. But then like they'll leave, especially if it's a foreigner, and they'll have their boyfriend, husband, like not at the same time. I mean, some at the same time, but some not. But it's like, I think it's the same thing. It's just like, well, I'm here. Like we see each other 8 months out of the year. Like I don't speak the language, or it could be like we're in a small town,
Yeah, it's a safety thing.
Yeah, and you're just like, well, I'm comfortable. We might as well do this. So like there's such a thing as like, there's like a term for it that exists, but it's something like the season boo. Like you essentially get together for the season. No.
And is there any, like, does that create drama within the locker room of like, because is there like, is there ever like group experiences where all the teammates are like, let's just all do this together?
No. Gross.
Gross.
No, I think
just
like,
one-on-one.
Yeah. It's more like, we just,
It's fascinating because, it's obviously way less taboo for women to be with other women. I wonder with like locker rooms and like men, like if that was like a thing.
I think they'll have like one
guy
that's like super out, and like there's no way they would allow, I think, two men to just be together.
Yeah.
It's like you can be gay like outside of
I wonder,
team,
I think back to my locker room experiences and I feel like that's probably happened.
Absolutely. Listen, I have a lot of gay male friends, and they tell me like at least a third man they sleep with or mess around with are straight. I'm doing air quotes for people that cannot see.
Yeah, if you're listening.
Straight. Like my friend has like made out with the dude that was on honeymoon with his wife.
Yeah.
Like they're like, no, everybody is kind of somewhere on the spectrum. You're not necessarily like that you're, gay or don't love your wife or whatever, but like
it's breaking down these walls though.
Yeah,
right?
You're somewhere on the spectrum, and it's like, it's an experience. It's not so black and white, even for women, like for us, like, you exist on a spectrum from, women that like, I don't want a man close to me to like,
meh, I'm just open to whatever.
Yeah. And everything in between. And it just, I understand why, like just from cultural norms and stuff, like for men, it's not as open, but it's like.
Where does that come from? Like, why is it such a taboo thing? I mean, I think it's a religious thing. That's ingrained
a lot of it,
into our culture. I think I was watching this documentary on Netflix called The Family.
Oh God, it sounds Mormon. Is it?
Well, it's really fascinating. It's how the Christian church infiltrated our government at the highest level, and they used like basically evangelical philosophy of like preaching the word of Jesus to these political leaders in different countries, and basically using Jesus to program people into their belief structure, which is like the thing we talked about earlier, like the fear, the shame.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating. One of the things they talked about is in Uganda, like their take on homosexuality is like the death penalty.
They just came out with that like it's now like punishable. I mean, the same, I don't know, like, because Russia is not, they're Orthodox, I think. And they're also like, there's like a lot of violence against homosexuals.
It's really fascinating because I think what that is a shadow projection of your own, like homophobia is your own insecurity of like projecting out that I'm not gay, but those people that are the more I'm not gay have probably the most unprocessed or untouched
it's
sexual
self-shame. You feel ashamed. Like I was reading that somewhere too. Like when you feel ashamed about like, you know, if I'm a woman and I find women attractive and I'm like ashamed of that because of church, because of, you know, culture, whatever, then I'm going to shame you for that same thing because I'm like, well, you can't do it. Like I can't do it because I feel shame. So like, therefore you can't do it either. You know, and you just, and that's how like and I mean, okay, I don't know how much of this is true. Like the dude from New York, one of the, not the DeSantis guy from Florida, but the other one that they found pictures of him, like he's running for office and they found pictures of him doing drag back in Brazil. Whether it's true, like I don't know, but, and he's super hardcore, like anti-LGBTQ, like all that stuff.
And then
I'm
kind
like,
of
anti-drag and all that stuff. And I'm like, those are the loudest ones, but they then get caught, you know, with prostitute, transvestites, like just having sex with men. And I'm like, dude, if they just own up to their own, you know, position on the spectrum and just like, but well,
that's the important, I mean, the judgment, the shame, the fear, like these are the things that are eroding the very fabric of our reality and their frequencies, right?
Horrible, You
talked about, before we got on the show, you connected with Joe Dispenza for the first time, which you already spoke about a little bit, but you started understanding frequency and emotion and energy and understanding that when you were going to church, all you felt was fear and shame. And those are the frequencies of destruction and death.
Disease. He like, I read the book and I was still like, I like to be all the way in. So I'm like, I'm in church. I went to high school, to a Christian high school, and like we weren't religious and back home. So I was like, okay, all these people are doing this. These Americans must know, like, what's up? So I'm like, okay, I'm going. And then I'm like, all right, well, they're believing, like, I want that experience as well.
As far as going to church?
Like going to church, listen, you know, like Jesus, like I didn't speak English for the first few years. So like I would just kind of be there and like I have friends and I'm like, okay, these are cool people.
And you weren't exposed to this at a young age in Ukraine, so this is new to you. This whole
14, a first-time church.
What did you think of it? Do you remember the first thought you had around Jesus, Christianity, and that whole idea?
I think like everything was so new to me. I'm like, I've never really been like, I've been to Poland, but like this is a new world, and I was just open, kind of thinking like, this is the whole new culture. This is what they believe in. Like, and I'm like, everybody wants to come to the United States. They must have something figured out. So I was just kind of like.
Did you have what was your religious upbringing around creation and God when you were younger?
I never even thought about it. Like
that never was a part of the conversation?
No.
More in survival mode kind of thing? Or is it just...
No, I had a great childhood, like, my parents worried about stuff, but like, they didn't let me worry about stuff. Like, I had amazing childhood.
Did you ever have like any curiosities arise as a kid of like, what is this? Why am I here?
I wasn't exposed to like religion. We didn't have those conversations. My mom was very like, she's into like psychology and stuff. So she always fed me some things, but it was more like, hey, you're going to live in the United States. You're going to like do that. You're going to be great. You're going to do this, that, and the other. Like, and I remember I have still like a paper when I wrote when I was 12 and it was my life goals. It's hilarious. And it says like, I'm going to be in the WNBA. I've never watched the WNBA game. I don't even know how I knew WNBA existed. We didn't have that on TV. I've never watched NBA game. I'm like, who told me WNBA existed? This was in the year, so I was 12 in 1998. Did it like just form at that time? I don't know.
So what do you think? Have you processed that at all? Like, where did that come from?
I have no idea where it came. Like nobody else knows. And then I wanted, and then like, I remember a few years ago, I was like, oh man, I love this like Jeep Wrangler, like sport. I don't anymore, but whatever. But I was like, I want this Jeep. And one of my best friends got it. And I was like, dude, this is the Jeep I want. And then my mom ends up sending me this paper with my goals. And it says, WNBA. And it says, I want to own a Jeep. And I was like, I've never seen a Jeep before. Like, I was in USSR. Like, you have to understand, Snicker bar was like, whoa, dude. Jeep? What Jeep? Like, we didn't even have cars. Like, I didn't have my driver's license till I was 22. Like, my mom didn't get hers till she was 36. Like, that's not, we use buses. Like, where did you see a Jeep, you know? And there was just certain things that I was like, and I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire. And then I was like, clarification, in dollars. Because I'm sure I'm probably a millionaire in Ukrainian money like now. And I was like, in dollars. I was like, you got to be specific with this.
Yeah. So you already at that age were kind of manifesting, doing journaling,
but it's like, it was
setting.
all from my mom, but it wasn't religious. So what we had is like, I guess it's like Orthodox church. And you go on like Easter, or if you want to, like you have an ailment and you go and you light a candle and just put it there and you walk out. Like, that's...
Pay your respects.
Yeah, that's literally all. Like, I didn't understand any of that. So in high school, I started going to church, and then through college, and then after, I was just like, okay, this is super duper me. I'm into it. I'm tithing all the time. I'm like, I didn't have sex till I was like 30.
You didn't
like, I did stuff, but like I was like,
you were still like a virgin, and you didn't want to like,
so overseas they call it American virgin. It's like, yeah, you do everything but like penetration sex. And I was like, well, I mean, when I get married, like, it was to the point, I was like, how much does virginity cost in Middle East? Like, can I get a cool million out of this? Like, I'm so stupid. but yeah, no, I was super into it. I was like, I'm doing this, you know? And then I started going overseas, and I remember my first year in France, I was like, these people are really cool, but like, France is the most atheist, like non-religious country in Europe. And I was just like, well, wait a minute. Because in US, it's easy. Like, I'm surrounded by people that go to church. That's my friends, that's my peers. But there, it was not like that. And I was like, well, how is that? Like, these are all good people. Like, are you telling me they all going to hell? And then I ran the math, and I was like, okay, close to 8 billion people. I think 1 in 8 are Christian, Catholic, you know, that like kind of section of religion. Then like at least half, they're like just saying they're Christian or whatever. So I'm like, so it's 1 in 16. So I'm like, okay, if I'm God, if I'm father of 16 children, am I going to have 16 children knowing that 15 of them are going to hell? Like, knowing that's a fact, like that's just what it's going to be. And I was like, the math ain't mathing for me. I was like, wait a minute.
That's the thing that helped you.
Well, that was the first. It took me years. Like, every year I would have one thing. But like I said, when I'm in. And I knew that like to follow a religion, you have to accept certain things as, you know, we just take them on faith.
Yeah. And what was that big thing in the Christian faith?
I mean, like, not questioning any, like, stuff like this that I'm like, wait a minute. So like, you telling me like 1 out of every 16 people on this planet is going to hell?
And
what's
if
the point?
You
like,
even questioning that is like, whoa.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to, yeah. And then, so it was just like year after year, I would have like one thing and another thing, but I was like, no, we believe in this thing, we're doing this thing. And then I remember so Joe Dispenza happened, and I'm reading the book, and it's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And he talks about measuring your brain waves in different emotional states, like in meditation, or when you feel like love and joy, and when you're depressed. And he's explaining how like each one of our emotions produces like wavelengths. You know, you can measure this, like your brain activity and all that. And that the emotions of guilt and shame and pride are the same frequency as all of the like cancer, depression, what are they called? Like the ongoing like autoimmune diseases.
Wow,
like,
yeah.
That's all the same frequency. And I to this day remember like just like stopping in my tracks, and I was like, wait a minute. That's all I freaking feel at church. Like guilt, shame. As much as I'm trying to be like quote unquote good, like you're never good enough. You could always do more. Like, it's honestly kind of like in sports. It doesn't matter how great you are, you could still do better. Like, it just never, this like never ending pursuit. And as much as people are like, yeah, but grace, but this and that. I'm like, no, but you're expecting perfection. There's always grace, but it's like, I'm always feeling like shit because like, I can never be good enough, you know? And I was like, this ain't right. Because I was concerned for my health. Because I was like, I don't want to breed disease inside of me based on these emotions that I'm experiencing from this religion. And then like, I think a few years later, we had an experience, like one of my teams had a journalist, like TV crew come in, and they're like, hey, we're just recording a few messages to like support our LGBT community. Like we want to make sure that, you know, we say something about like, there's no violence. We don't support violence against like the gay community. Obviously, like, I mean, pretty easy answer, right? But and they were like, whoever wants to, like, if you don't want to, you don't have to. And I'm just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, what if I wanted to? And I was like, well, obviously, like, that's easy, yeah. But then I was like, what if people in my church see this video? Like, what if this surfaces and like, how would I feel standing on the stage, in front of my church being like, yeah, I supported this. So that freaked me out. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Didn't do it, went home. And then I was just like sitting there and I was like, dude, there are real people that are like your closest friends, gay, bi, whatever the heck. Like I've dated a girl before and I was just like, and I remember even like in that situation, I was like, oh, okay, like girls are not maybe for me, like cool experience, very low on the gay spectrum for me. But like, cool, but I was like, I don't feel bad. And like after having some conversations with people that are like, yeah, like you can go kind of back and forth or, sometimes you feel comfortable with women, sometimes you don't. But they're like, I'm like constantly feeling this way. Like I can't, I've had friends that are like, yeah, my parents are like the deacons and whoever at church. I'm like, I can't, like, what do you want me to do? I feel violated when the man touches me. Like, and certain things that I'm just like, how can you not just be compassionate to the person that's, regardless of the reason why you think it's a sin or shmen, whatever the hell, I don't care. This person is like suffering because you're imposing your own crap on them that like, they can't, like given what they have now, like they can't, they don't want to, and it doesn't matter what their reason is. So anyways, and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking like, dude, you just chose some dead people's words on some book that we don't even know, like there was like 5 literate people at that time and like only a certain few could write and rewrite the book. And you telling me that like those, tsars, pharaohs, whoever the hell was around that time and emperors, like you telling me they didn't have like a hand in this? There's no way. Can you imagine right now, like our world having a book and only like the government people are the ones that could like read and write?
I mean, it is fascinating that it's 2,000 years later, 1,500 years later, however much, whenever the book was written. I think it was like 300 AD, which is fascinating because it's 250 years after Jesus died. But like, it's still ingrained, like 40% of the world is Christian with this belief system because the frequency of fear and shame and guilt is so powerful and it's in the body that whatever story to try and absolve you of that is actually keeping you trapped within it.
Yeah.
And it's even you like coming to it late and then taking years to break down the story with curiosities and questions and being like, and sitting with it. I grew up in the Christian church and it took me the longest time. Like it wasn't until I stopped going to church, had always had so much resistance to it. If you would have asked me like, hey, do you believe you're going to go to hell if you don't believe that Jesus died for your sins? I would be like, no, like, I don't believe that. But there was something I was hanging on to deep in my own psyche that if I got hit by a car and died, like the fear of death, I don't want to live eternity in hell. So like there was a part of me that was holding on to that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I
brainwashed for so long.
And it wasn't until I told my dad, he actually point blank asked me, because it's always been a big like thing in our family. It's like really, fundamentalist Christian of like, this is what we're doing. And I remember him asking me when I was traveling in my van after I retired, and I was like questioning everything, because that's one of the things, leaving athletics, like being confronted with the deepest of questions. Like, who am I without this thing?
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for that because it led me on this path. And it led me to really exploring and like learning more about Eastern philosophy and mysticism and psychology and like Joe Dispenza and that type of work. And he point blank asked me, do you believe that Jesus died for your sins? And I remember like all of this like intensity rise up in my chest. And I'm like, oh my God, like, and I had so much fear of telling him the truth of what I actually believed and like what it would mean if I actually let go of this. And I remember saying no. And it was like all that energy just went.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was free.
Yeah. No, it has a hold. I mean, because even after that, like I still, I was kind of sitting at home and I was like, dude, like, how could you choose that over like real people that like you interact with, like you love, you support, like they're real humans in front of you. And like, you're choosing a concept that you have to turn a blind eye to even believe.
Yeah.
And I was that was like another thing. And then finally one year I was like, you know what? I think it was like the next year. I'm going to run an experiment. I was like, something ain't sitting right. And I was like, God, if you're real, you'll bring me back. Like, I'm going to notice a difference. And I was like, for 1 year, I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to go to church. I'm leaving Bible. Like, I'm leaving everything behind. But I was still kind of like, hey, God, dude, you know my heart. I'm really trying to do a research here. And for a year, I stopped and I never started back again. And it's so much better. I feel like I'm more myself. I'm, even when I mess up, I'm like, I still have, like, there is a guiding light. I feel like a lot of people think that, like, you lose all moral compass or whatever. And I'm like, no, you still freaking have, like, that's stupid. But I think what was hard, and like, maybe, I don't know if you like relate to this, but I was trying to explain it to one of my friends because he was like, how hard could it have been to like choose your friends over religion? And I was like, well, dude. So when you believe something like religion for so long, your entire life, like, I think of it as like scaffolding on a building that's getting built. I'm building it, but the scaffolding, like, it gets put before, and it's like, that's what dictates how high the building, like, where it's going to go. So it keeps everything kind of contained. And that's what religion was for me. So I was like, yeah, I have evidence for these things to not be true. But now, not only do I have to take the scaffold, like, I have to restart the entire process. Like, I have to break everything down and start anew. And like, what do I want to build it on? What do I believe? And I found that, I don't know, a lot of people maybe feel the same, but like, I think the Bible or whatever religious book, it allows you to not think for yourself. You don't have to figure out what's sin, what's bad, what's good. You have the book for it. You don't have to sit there and like go on journeys and like, well, why do I feel different from this? Like, what's up? What's behind that? Or, where do I stand on these issues? That takes time. That takes conversation. That takes, like some introspection. You have to be curious.
It takes responsibility.
You have to own your shit. And like, I feel like it's just easy to be like, oh, there's this book and I don't know why I believe it or I believe it, but like, that's what the Bible said. I'm doing it, and like now with all the like political decisions that are being made based on the freaking Bible. And I'm like, you never thought for yourself. You just took a freaking book and you're, convincing other Bible thumpers that this is the way. I don't think you've thought about it. And I have some friends who are like super hardcore, like Christian Catholic, and they're like, yeah, no, it doesn't make sense, but like, I'll figure it out.
But what else am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and like, I don't know. It's so many examples of people just.
I mean, it's such a good metaphor with the scaffolding and the building, because it's like what I realized when I started waking up to these things, like I wanted to, like my parents, like I wanted them to see so bad. I wanted to save them. I wanted to like, to have them poke a hole in their thing so they can see it. And then I started realizing that's a lot to ask of somebody, because it's the entire lens in which they view reality. The very foundational rock is this belief structure. And so it took us like deconstructing a little bit at a time to get there. And then once you get there, it's like the whole thing crumbles. Like that can be pretty intense. And so for somebody that's never questioned that, to expect them to all of a sudden rip the rug out or like destroy the foundation and just have it all collapse, like that's where people have psychotic breaks. And so they're actually holding on to, this makes me feel safe, even though I know doesn't make sense. There's a lot of fear there.
But it's already built. It's already there. It's already standing. And that's what like I'm now trying to figure out. I'm like, how do you speak to someone? Not necessarily that I'm trying to get them out of their religion. You could still follow some principles. Like I feel like there is a thread
of truth in it all.
Yeah, in all of that. So like it's not all bad, but at the same time, I'm like, how do I, knowing the other side of it, knowing that like their life is built on it, and like you can't just, it's not as simple as like, hey, this is the truth or this is the fact. Like it's not that simple. So I'm like, how do you talk to people? How do you even like, from which angle do you approach them, And like, that's the thing that I'm like, if I find an answer to this will be great.
Yeah. That'd be, that's the secret to the universe, to be able to help a lot of people.
I know. I'll make so much money. That'll be like great. Like I'm sure some speaker people know how to like deconstruct, but it's like, it's not deconstructing an argument. It's an emotional thing. It's a, it's a lot more involved. Yeah. It's not just like a simple.
That's the thing, is there's not even like the way that the church is. They don't allow themselves to think. Like with my dad, we'll just go in circles. No matter what I tell him, he'll just go in circles, and you'll
come back to the thing of like faith. You have to have faith, and it's like,
or he'll say, "I'm not a theologian."
Yeah,
go like, talk to a theologian. I'm like, I would love to, because like I am a theologian. Like I study, like I've been studying God, and like I've I've went on my own journey to discover the truth for myself. And that's where people miss out. Like if you believe something, like why do you believe it?
Yeah.
And are you open-minded enough to go find a knowing within yourself? Like the idea of blind faith, like just be blind about it, don't question anything, like just trust. I have a completely different definition of faith. Faith is earned. Faith is earned by going and getting outside your comfort zone and allowing God to support you by you following the thing that's on your heart, not playing it safe. That's where faith is earned.
Right.
It's not a blind, like, oh, I'm just going to stay comfortable because I'm just going to give all of my responsibility and my life and my joy all to something outside myself.
Just giving away responsibility, and you just get to float through life, and it just, I don't know, it's the floater, like you kind of keep people numb, blind, you know.
Easy to control a population.
Yeah, when you see,
that.
and like, oh my God, never thought I would say this because it just sounds so like conspiracy-ish, but I'm like, it's so true. Because now you're like authority, you know, like it says like in the Bible, like follow the authority no matter who it is, you know, like you pay your tithe, you pay your taxes, like follow, don't question. And I'm not with it now. Now, like one of my friends the other day was trying to help me out with something. And he was like, okay, well, download this thing and like get this book or something like that. And I was like, but why? And he was like, just do it. Like, I know, like, and I was like, no, you need to tell me why I'm doing it. And like, what is this going to bring about? And we had a whole argument. And I was like, I'm not following you just because you said do it. Like,
it's like religion's worst enemy is the question why.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I think it just popped into my head because I was like, dang, this was literally a few days ago. I was just like, why am I like, no, I need to know why. And yeah, I feel like that's
don't ever lose that curiosity. I think that's the biggest thing. So where to from here? What do you got going on? How you finding purpose now after this transition? 11 months.
I'm still in it. I still haven't figured it out. I did a lot of kind of like counseling. I had a life coach. I had like a tapping practitioner person. I've gone to, we talked about our shaman Rami. Shout out to him.
Shout out to shaman Rami.
Austin. He's freaking great. Yeah. So I did that. I've done energy work. That was really cool. I worked with Mina, who you know.
Yeah.
I had a session with her one morning. She was like, hey, before you get on come on our team. So I helped them with coaching, like coaching or offering services for coaches, like sports coaches. So like developing like leadership program, kind of like what we talked about, just helping them navigate this like psychology and like the relational part of coaching.
Don't sleep with your players.
Number
one rule.
Oh my God. Anyways, but she was like, I want to have a session, and she's a energy healer practitioner. So she was like, I want to have a session with you before you come on our team. Like I can feel there's something, like you need to get over or whatever. And I was like, all right. So we have a session, and it's whatever. It's interesting, but it's Reiki, essentially long distance Reiki. And I was like, all right, cool. Finish the session, nothing, like everything is normal. I go downstairs to have my morning coffee like I always do. I chug the coffee, and immediately I'm like just burning. I start sweating, I get nauseous, and I'm like, whoa, buddy, like I need to go outside. So I go outside and I'm like, that was really weird. Cool, whatever. Next day, same thing. Go downstairs. I've been having coffee like for years. I go to have coffee. I drink half a cup and I'm like, oh God, I'm about to throw up. And I can't finish it. And I'm hot. I don't feel good. And I was like, man, something is wrong. Ever since August, like I didn't drink coffee for like 5 months after that. Could not a drop, not iced coffee, not decaf, not black tea, nothing. And then the same thing happened to alcohol, which I was really upset about. I was drinking wine like every day, just having a glass with my friend. All of a sudden, I'm getting immediate migraine. Like half a glass, I'm sick. And I was like, I call him like, Mina, what the hell? Like,
what'd you do to me? Witchcraft.
Coffee and wine.
What's your favorite things?
I'm like, you should have asked me. I would have given you some other vices.
You give me some consent here before you take away my fucking
ask
things.
For this shit. But I could not drink for like the longest. And I just kind of started back like sporadically. So now I drink decaf coffee. I still can't get through one glass of wine. Like occasionally I'll drink something sweet, but it's like I've maybe had 3 drinks since last August, and it's like April.
And you're like wanting to drink, or do you feel good about it?
I'm not. It's just like socially kind of easier sometimes to be like, oh,
a glass of wine is so good.
Like something. I'm not a drinker.
It's a little bit of edge.
But it's just like, this is nice. Like I love being by the pool in the evening.
Especially being from France.
Like
living in France for a while.
Sipping wine, like it's nice. And coffee, like it's such a, coffee shop. So like, hey, let's go grab coffee.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, dang, man.
What
So
are you
that
doing,
was
matcha tea instead, or what do you got going on?
No, I do decaf, like herbal, whatever. Like now it's getting better to where like with the coffee, alcohol, I'm like, just no, because it gives me a bad headache.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so that was weird. And then I started kind of figuring out what I want to do. I was started as like a life coach for athletes, essentially. I'm trained, so I studied industrial organizational psychology for my master's with like mental health or like occupational health focus. And then I did like life coaching program and then like leadership and performance program, blah, 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 a whole bunch of stuff. So I was like, I want to work with athletes. But then I realized like working with few kids, I was like, I don't want to hear the same problems all the time. It's always, I'm not getting enough playing time.
It's
I'm
not like
mistakes.
actual issues. It's just sports psychology.
Like, go to somebody else. So now I'm kind of shifting more to like working with coaches. So like I'm helping Mina in the Athlete ER program, like establish, because they're kind of focused more on helping athletes. That's why it's called Athlete ER. But I wanted to introduce a program for coaches because I think that's like an overlooked group. And we did a few interviews with everyone from like NBA, NFL, hockey leagues, overseas, college basketball, like different sports and different leagues to kind of like see what coaches are going through, what they need help with. And like we kind of came out with some commonalities from all of that. And
what's the biggest commonality you guys found?
So there's like two parts. There's like player management and self-management. With player management, is just like everything we talked about. They don't know how to build their trust, how to like get them, to listen, and how to like, what is the actual problem? Like figuring that out. So those were like the most common. For the self, it was just a lot of like stress and lack of balance in life, between, managing the players, yourself, and then with the upper like administration, whoever it is, president. And then you have like fans and refs and like, so they kind of have
lots to manage. Wow.
Yeah, they have to wear many hats and like manage relationships. And like, in one role, they're like kind of the boss. In the other one, they're the like underling, whatever. And then it's a lot. So they're like, I don't know sometimes what to do, don't have support. So that's what came out of that. So that's kind of like what I'm focusing now. I'm taking the project management course from Google. Just trying to see where I want to take it. The more I look at jobs, I'm like, do I want to work like a real job?
For someone else, right?
Yeah. Like I would love to have a community and like coworkers. Like I don't want to sit at home all day and like clack away on a computer. Like I want to have, meetups, like exchange with people, whatever. But I think I started to get away a little bit from the like things that I love. Like I love organizing, like putting in systems. So things for like habits, for, your life, like your life system. How do you become successful? Like I have systems for everything from like my closet to my daily operations. Like I know that like I need to wake up first thing in the morning, early. I don't sleep in. I need to go to the gym. Like to me, that's not something I think about. And I have some people ask me, they're like, how do you like stay motivated? I'm like, I don't, because like,
just who I am.
That's my life. Like, I go to the gym. I know what I need to do to like stay there and have a successful workout. I know I need friends. So I go to group classes. I know it needs to be athletic. So I go, take our alpha class, which has like power lifts and like circuits. It's very athletic. Like that's like at Lifetime, that's probably the most like fit class they have. I know it needs to be in the morning. It needs to be the hardest thing. I get it out of the way and I feel great for the rest of the day. So like there's certain things that like you consciously create and then you do to where like it becomes a habit. Obviously basketball helped, like morning practices and stuff. But like now I don't have to think about it. And like establishing those kind of systems, that's what is interesting to me. That's all the like psychology stuff with like leadership and, how do you create a culture of like success, of like camaraderie, how do you like create these like positive vibes on the team, like all that stuff. That's what's interesting. And I think like with time, like I'm doing the project management thing and I was like, it's a little bit more, I'm getting away from what I really want to do, what I'm good at, and looking at like, well, we're in Austin, who pays? Like tech pays a lot. And I have friends that like got jobs and they were like, girl, I tripled my basketball salary like on my first job. And I'm like, triple salary sounds kind of good, you know? So
Still trying to figure it out.
it's like, it sways you. And like, there are certain things I want to learn from like a different job, but I'm kind of like, am I getting away from what I really know that like I want to do? And I think when you ask questions and you're kind of like more aware, it's hard to just like do something repetitive for other people, like help them, build their dream that you don't necessarily believe in, but it's like it pays well.
Yeah, just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
And nothing will erode you faster than that.
I always told myself like I will never do anything for money. And like I had to stay in basketball for a while longer than I wanted to because of like Ukraine, my citizenship situation and stuff, and like just job. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do yet. I waited till I got my master's in 2020. So, it took a while, but I was like, yeah, I don't ever want to have this feeling again of like working just to like, I'm here for money. Like I want nothing from this.
If you were, this is going to be the final question, okay? Because I think it's really fascinating. You went and interviewed a few of your friends who had already transitioned out of basketball to kind of what do I expect? Any feedback, any insights, anything to help me in the process. Imagine yourself coming and asking you that same question, going through that same interview. What would you tell yourself a year ago?
Ooh, man, I would definitely start early. And it doesn't matter how prepared you are. Like I was super prepared. It's not going to be a smooth ride. I don't have this like identity issue per se, but I'm still like, what the fuck? Like, it's great because it's like you have so many options. Like I can do so many things. Like I'm well educated, like I'm intelligent. Like I know I don't have a problem like doing something, but it's like literally everything is out there. So I would just say, man, start early and like you are not going to do it alone. Like the best insights I've had and like kind of leads and things were from people, from kind of like talking to people and like letting them know what is it that I like. And then they're like, oh, hey, there's like this possibility. And like, some of them don't work out, but you're still kind of like, oh, cool. And like the mental health part, I've done a lot of, whether it was like shrooms or weed, like my little car therapy, had a, life coach, energy practitioner, shaman, like you're going to need all of the things. I would say set aside a budget for figuring your shit out. I was lucky enough, like I planned this way in advance. So I was always like, I'm going to take a year off. I was like, I need to make sure I have enough money to like not work for a year because I don't want to take just a job for money. I want to make sure I have time to find what is it, that I want to do and take care of like myself, my mental health. And it's still in the process. Like I don't think I'm closer, but I don't think I'm close.
I'm still in process 5 years later.
Yeah.
I think it's as a transitioning athlete, especially when you play a long time professionally, I think the transition's always there. It's just like deeper levels of integration.
It is. And if you think about it, I was born into it. Like my dad played. I was literally like my first years I spent in the gym and I remember playing with my friends, like running to the weight room. And that's where we spent like while, our parents played, we were back there. So I'm like, that's the only thing I've known my entire life. When my dad retired, I started to play and then I left, and started a career of my own. And that's 30, almost next week, 37 years of nothing but basketball.
Wow, Val. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
What a conversation. Holy cow.
I feel like we could keep going.
I know.
Like,
I only have this studio for a certain amount of time, but we can definitely do another follow-up at some point.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? I know social media is private, but where can...
It is.
There
I
any way?
add, honestly, if people interact, I add them. It's val.berez, B-E-R-E-Z on Instagram. I have LinkedIn. I have my own website. It's also valberez.com. Trying to be a little more active and post like stories, blogs, kind of like let people know, but I haven't yet. But that's in... Message me and I will interact. I just don't do the creepers of like, I just want to check it.
Don't have creepy energy and then you can get in,
interact. Like, hey, cool podcast. Heard you. All right, cool. You can add me.
Cool. Wow. Deeply grateful. Thank you, Val.
Thank you for inviting me. This was great.
Beautiful. And thank you all for listening, watching. If you enjoyed this podcast, really big way to support it is leave a 5-star review. Really say something nice. I know a lot of my friends, like when I first launched the podcast, I sent it to like 100 people and I'm like, leave a 5-star review. It really helps. And I only have like 4 reviews or 6 reviews
You
or something.
only have 4 friends.
And like people say like, yeah, I'll do it, but then they don't do it. So if you're listening to this and you really want to support me, it takes a few seconds. Go leave a 5-star review. And we talked about a lot in this conversation. There was a lot that we covered, a lot of value, a lot of personal stories, a lot of inspirational content. If there's somebody in your life that you think this podcast, this conversation might impact in a positive way, go ahead and share it with them as well. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.